The first Monster Hunter game on a mobile smartphone is not something people often think about. Long before Monster Hunter Now, Monster Hunter Explorer, hell even Monster Hunter Freedom Unite on iOS, was Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. Many of you have probably never heard of this game, or at best have a vague recollection of it. Beyond the cartoony font, gimmicky touch control scheme, and what appears to be a largely simplified version of Monster Hunter, is an incredibly deep and addicting experience that you simply would not believe could come from a mobile game from 2011. This is Dynamic Hunting. It wasn't easy getting my hands on Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. Well, to be truthful, it was a harrowing experience. Support for Dynamic Hunting along with iOS Freedom Unite was officially discontinued from the App Store in 2019. Dynamic Hunting, however, stopped working for modern devices long before that. Support being discontinued for a game like this makes recovering and playing it incredibly difficult. If you previously owned a game on the iOS and wanted to re-download it years later, it simply wouldn't work. Attempts to obtain Dynamic Hunting on your iPhone, Android device, or an emulator today would also be futile. BlueStacks, LD Player, hell even emulating old enough firmware in the Android SDK Studio couldn't run this game. Well, effectively. With the right setup, you could get it to run in SDK, but it would be about one frame of gameplay every 4 seconds. The game is simply too old to be supported correctly. The chances of finding an actual way to play this game became more and more slim. I spent a lot of time scouring the internet for some means to boot up Dynamic Hunting. I wanted to document this game through my own experience instead of just finding footage on the internet, and I was determined. This game was meant to be played again. After a lot of research and trial and error, I ultimately found out the two main ways you can play this game. One, having a device that already has Dynamic Hunting both installed without updating the firmware so the game doesn't become unusable. Or two, to acquire both a device with the correct firmware and running a specific type of ARM. This was a difficult thing to initially figure out. Basically, it means even if I get a phone with the right firmware, it doesn't necessarily mean the game will be able to be installed correctly and run on an Android device. I want to give a huge thanks to the user Mascorridor for helping me figure this out. Without them, I would not have been able to find out that this Nexus Android was going to be my key to be able to uncover Dynamic Hunting and play it for myself. This Samsung Galaxy Nexus is running on Android firmware 4.3. The seller I purchased it from did not do any updates. It was basically as it was when shipped out of the factory. So the type of phone and the firmware it's on is key here. This is the translated Japanese version of Dynamic Hunting, and it actually works. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to get this to run an easier way, but God, have I spent countless hours trying to figure out what that way would be, only to turn up with nothing. At least for the average person, Dynamic Hunting isn't an easily accessible game. You have to jump through many hoops just to see the title screen. But finally, I have my hands on Dynamic Hunting, and I can document the pure insanity of this game. Well, almost. There's one last issue to get through here, and that's how exactly I'm going to record the game. An Android phone with this firmware does not have any good screencasting apps or functionality. All the ones people use nowadays simply don't offer compatibility for a little old Nexus on 4.3 Jelly Bean. Initially, I was just going to record gameplay like this, as if it were transported back to 2011. You know, give you guys an authentic vibe. Hell, even the trailer for the game was recorded like this. But after a while of recording, I realized this would make for some pretty awful footage. So I looked into finding an HDMI adapter. This was a challenge on its own, but I'll spare you the unnecessary details. Essentially, I had to find the correct adapter that would work specifically for the Nexus One. These were made only to work with specific phones, and figuring out which one I needed to find in the year 2023 was no easy task. After a bunch of incorrect adapters, eventually I found the one that could record this game flawlessly. I'm surprised this kind of tech existed back then, because the gameplay comes out crisp to my capture card. The only issue is that it can cause some frame rate issues with the phone after extended gameplay because it runs pretty hot, but that's not too bad of a trade-off. Dynamic Hunting in full high definition was finally mine. I could now play this game to its full extent and properly document every nook and cranny. I had also acquired the 3 updates the game had as well, which introduced a lot of interesting things we are going to go over later. Once the game was booted up, I was greeted by the trainer himself from Monster Hunter Portable 2nd and Freedom Unite. He welcomes me to the world of Dynamic Hunting and prompts me to enter my name. In the menu, we see a couple of things to click on: options, solo hunt, hunter's log, and training. it's time to jump right into Solo Hunt, blind with no prior knowledge of really anything about the game. What monsters it offered, what the core mechanics are, even what the gameplay was like. My adventure with dynamic hunting begins with the first hunt. I see a silhouette here that ends up being Yan Kutku, my old friend. I was eager to finally see what the gameplay felt like. I was rocking the sword and shield and the basic hunter armor I had available. Immediately, I was a little confused. These red and yellow marks would appear, and when I rolled, a giant comic font would appear telling me if I did a good job or not. I figured I could worry about all that later and just stick with what I know. The basics weren't too different from regular Monster Hunter, just had to tap my screen to attack Kutku. I could even break his head like in the other games. But what's this, a special move? I turn red and unleash a barrage of attacks? Looks a little familiar, but hey, without too much effort, I took down my first monster. And apparently, I met with a score and a ranking. Okay, this is new. Despite taking him down pretty quickly, my score was pretty awful. D rank isn't anything to write home about. Well, actually, it was the lowest rank you could possibly get. I couldn't let that bring me down, though. There seems to be plenty more monsters to face and get acquainted with. I'm sure I'll do better in the future. My next opponent was Kongalala, and it was a pretty easy fight as well. Everything I knew from previous Monster Hunter games came in handy: dodge his swipe attacks, avoid hitting his expanded tummy. In no time, I had him hunted and gone. I was actually surprised how many of his actual original moves they fit into this hunt. So far, the game has been pretty easy. This is until I faced the mighty crab, the Daimyo Hermitor. The hunt was going pretty well until this giant danger message showed up on the screen. Hermitor burrows underground and these red marks appear that I couldn't dodge for the life of me. I was getting absolutely smoked by this crustacean. I must be doing something wrong, right? The last two hunts were a cakewalk, and suddenly Mr. Krabs had my number. I decided to consult the trainer and look at his useful tips, since there was a whole section on the controls of dynamic hunting. Let's see, well, now that I think about it, one of the graphics that pops up looks like this. They can't seriously be playing with just one hand, right? Tap on the screen to walk and use, tap both fingers of one hand to block, and both fingers on one hand to evade in a direction? This can't be real. Looking at the official footage for dynamic hunting, I confirmed it was true. The way that the developers intended the game to be played was holding the device up with your non-dominant hand and using two fingers on your dominant hand to do every single action in the game. Playing like this feels completely stunted, rigid, and just not responsive at all. Is this really the dynamic hunting that was promised? After trying this control scheme out for a while, I just wasn't buying it. I decided to continue playing my own way, with both hands, as you normally would for most mobile games. I still felt like something was wrong, though. I was still having issues rolling at the correct time and in the correct direction, especially if I was using a weapon that could block. I would sometimes block when I didn't want to, and I'd be in big trouble. But no way in hell was I going to play this game with only one hand. Despite all the troubles with the controls, I pressed on. After some difficulty, I defeated the crab and was met with the slimy little freak Kezu. After struggling around his thunder shenanigans and bouncing my ass off, eventually I was able to clutch out a win from every single level 1 monster. And my reward is unlocking level 2. The monsters are gonna get tougher now. Will my skills be enough? Fast forward, it wasn't until I got to Pink Rathian that I knew I had to make a change. It was a grueling fight. I had to bust out the greatsword, and even then, I was doing so little damage, the 3-minute timer felt aggressively short. I tried and tried again. I was both intrigued by the mechanics present in the game and also confused. Despite that, I was just about to close out a victory against Pink Rathian. What? A crushing defeat. I've never crashed in this game before, and I never ended up crashing ever again. Perhaps this was a sign. There was simply too much I didn't understand about this game, and I needed to also figure out a way to perfect the way I used the touch controls. The latter I figured out after much trial and error. Basically, I'd learned to hold my thumbs down for a split second and then swipe to the desired direction so I could roll consistently and effectively. This little adjustment made a world of a difference, believe it or not. It took me far too long to learn this, but it was necessary to play this game at the level I needed to be to face its great challenges. I'm now able to wield my phone in a comfortable way and attack, roll, and do all the necessary mechanics consistently. With that out of the way, I could focus on the actual gameplay. But simply understanding the controls isn't enough. To be the most dynamic of hunters, we need to understand everything about this game. Dynamic hunting has so much hidden beneath its exterior that's worth talking about. Our time of hunting in the dark is over, so let's go over all the mechanics and quirks of dynamic hunting that leads to its incredibly addicting and challenging gameplay. Before we get super in-depth into the mechanics of this game, let me talk a little bit about the core gameplay differences you may notice in dynamic hunting versus your typical Monster Hunter game. Now, the monsters at their core are surprisingly like their original counterparts. Similar part breaks, areas that bounce, move patterns, elemental weaknesses. However, there were things put in place to make the gameplay easier for the average gamer. The monsters have a health bar, the timing for when to dodge is displayed on screen through a flash, as well as damage numbers existing. Damage numbers are the norm nowadays for current Monster Hunter games, but back when this game came out, it was quite unusual to be able to see exactly how much damage you'd be doing. You still have 3 carts though. You have 3 health bars. When one depletes, you consume a heart to come back to life. Some more key differences: this game introduces the scoring and ranking system we witnessed earlier. Whetstones do not exist in this game. There is no sharpness mechanic whatsoever, so they would have no use. There's no stamina bar to worry about, so you can roll and block to your heart's content. You can only have 1 extra supply item that's assigned to each hunt along with potions, but no more than that. You cannot capture or repel monsters. Instead of the typical 50-minute hunt in mainline games, you only have 3 minutes per hunt in dynamic hunting. You can only be in the hunting area, there's no different zones or prep areas. You also don't need to paintball since you're only in one area. There is one thing you can do to prepare for certain hunts though. Aside from equipping weapons and armor, you can drink items before the hunts to give you boosts. But we'll get into that a little later. For now, let's jump into the core gameplay mechanics of dynamic hunting: dodging and blocking. You can deal with monster attacks in 2 big ways. The most commonly used one is rolling. You can only roll left or right in this game. Forward and back rolls aren't possible. You can roll whenever you want. However, if you roll in the correct direction when a yellow mark shows up on the screen, you'll receive either a bad, okay, good, or great rating. Good gives you 1 of what I like to call stocks, and great gives you 2 of them. Certain yellow marks can be rolled in any direction, but some do require you to roll in the right direction in order to dodge it correctly and to fully avoid the monster's attack. That being said, this game can be janky sometimes and still award you good ratings when rolling in a position or timing that you wouldn't think would award you anything. If you roll at the wrong time or direction and get hit, you will receive a bad. You can also block yellow marks. This can also reward you 1 to 2 stocks. Any weapons with auto guard will actually block for you if you have at least 1 stock. However, once guarded, it'll consume it. Guarding works for yellow marks, but when red marks appear, they are completely unblockable. You must roll correctly away from these. Something fun to note on the font used here: it's similar if not identical to the font used in games like Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Slashes and counters. Depending on the weapon, you can consume stocks to do either a vertical slash or horizontal slash. These are commonly referred to as slash attacks. Certain weapons only have 1 option available, but some have both. You can tell a slash attack is happening by the cool blue after image that occurs. Additionally, depending on what weapon you're using, it will affect how many stocks you can have stored up. Vertical slashes will always down a monster, being incredibly useful for stopping a monster from doing a powerful attack or getting them out of the air. Horizontal slashes do a powerful attack and can usually be followed up by a powered up version of your main combo. When a monster is winding up for an attack and a yellow or red mark appears, if you use either a vertical or horizontal slash, you can perform a counter. Counters do a lot more damage, signified by a big red number. Countering also contributes to the counter gauge. These slash attacks are going to be crucial for an important mechanic I'll go over in a moment. Barrage attacks. More on the counter gauge, it can increase in other ways like hitting the final hit of your normal attack or using a horizontal or vertical slash, even if it doesn't end up being a counter. Countering, however, is the best method to fill it up, and once full, you can use your special move known as a barrage attack. On the bottom left on the weapon icon, your special will appear as a glowing icon. The special gauge now acts as a timer because eventually your chance to use it will run out, which adds a layer of strategy. Finding the best time to use your special and on the right parts can be crucial. On top of the crazy damage you can do with the barrage attacks, you are invincible while they are in effect. The final hit of a barrage attack will always down the monster, so you can't combo any attacks after using it unless you've cornered a monster in the environment you're fighting them in. Perhaps these slashes and barrages are what inspired the hunter arts introduced in Monster Hunter Generations, or maybe even inspired the specials in the critically acclaimed Monster Hunter knockoff, Hunter Blade. Danger. All monsters have a danger mechanic, and what happens during this danger time depends on what monster you're facing. Monsters in this game don't have a rage mode, but the danger mode kind of acts like a replacement for this. There's never a visual representation that the monster is enraged, like a different type of breath or glowing eyes, etc. Danger is basically a segment where you're supposed to dodge a bunch of moves in succession, and it puts all your knowledge of the game's mechanics to the test. There's a large variety of what can happen during a danger time, but it boils down to blocking or dodging the correct way with the correct timing until you get an excellent. An excellent only happens during danger time, and it'll give you 3 stocks, as well as give you a small opportunity to counter with a slash attack. If you counter correctly, you'll activate chance time. Chance time is basically a huge opportunity to wail on a monster. Not only will you be doing increased damage to monsters in this state, you'll also ignore any type of bouncing, which allows you to break parts a lot easier and attack without any fear. Danger time is not the only way to trigger chance time. Nearly every monster has at least one special way to trigger its secret chance time. This can range from countering with the right timing when a monster is affected by a shock trap, or throwing a poison knife at the right moment. And sometimes these chance times last longer than chance times you'd get from danger time. Overall, chance time is going to be your biggest way to unload damage on most monsters, and is crucial if you want to be a true master of dynamic hunting. Hunting a monster. Monsters have a health bar with hearts above them. When you deplete their health bar, they are downed, and soon after they get back up by consuming one of their hearts. When they have no more hearts left to consume, they are on their final health bar, so if you deplete that, you have successfully hunted a monster. Once again, you cannot capture in this game. Whenever you deplete one health bar of a monster, they will be downed no matter what. You can use this to your advantage, but sometimes this stops you from continuing your combos or barrage attacks. A skilled dynamic hunter will always keep in mind how close a monster is to being downed. Depending on the hunt, you are given certain supply items you can use during the hunt, you always get potions, and you get a second item that is different based on what monster you're facing. Since you can't sheath and unsheath in this game, you can use supply items like shock traps whenever you want. When you fail a hunt in this game, there is no penalty like quest fees being deducted or losing hunter rank points. You can stay on the quest failed screen forever, which is really funny because the monster just sits there spamming moves. Combo. When you're attacking monsters successively, there's a little combo meter that goes up. This actually doesn't affect your score for anything, but it helps you keep track of good combos with your weapon, and can be a good way to track consecutive hits in regards to getting higher DPS. It can be fun to see how high you can get your combo with a mixture of all the different types of moves in this game. Part breaks. Monsters in dynamic hunting have similar part breaks to their counterparts in the main Monster Hunter games. It can range from just a head break to 2 separate breaks on their wings, 2 head breaks, a tail cut. It's a lot to keep track of, and certain monsters are very bouncy with some weapons, so you have to really figure out how to get certain breaks efficiently. You can tell when you break apart on a monster when a big white flash occurs and the monster flinches. It's obvious when you cut something like a tail, but the flash lets you know when you've broken something a bit less noticeable like a wing. Monsters flinch during the white flash as well, and if you break apart on a flying monster, like cutting Rathalos' tail in mid-air, it won't fully cut off until it touches the ground. Certain part breaks will also knock over a monster, similar to a chance time. Like real Monster Hunter, breaking parts can affect what rewards you obtain, but there's a unique mechanic to dynamic hunting where certain rewards won't drop unless you both break the correct parts and get either an A or S rank score. Once you successfully hunt a monster, you will receive a score comprised of 4 parts. The score was actually something you could have on a leaderboard on iOS back in the day, so it's fun that these hunts had an air of competition. Scores start at D rank and can go up to S rank. Let's break down the scoring system. Mission. Probably the most confusing out of all of them is the mission score. It took a while for me to figure this one out. Basically, good, greats, counters, predominantly chance times, and excellence lead to an S rank in mission score, which adds a layer of difficulty when it comes to S ranking in this game. Essentially, evade and successfully do enough of the mechanics of a fight, and you'll make it out with an S rank. There's no indication you've hit the S rank until you look at your score at the end of the hunt, so you just have to trust your gut. Health. Health is a simple concept if your intention is getting an S rank. Don't get hit. At all. You can get away with a small amount of chip damage as long as that damage occurs while blocking, and still get an S, but even one real hit from a monster, and the S rank is out of your reach. Even just a couple of hits will sink you down to a D rank. Time. Pretty simple concept for this one too. Kill a monster before the timer gets to a certain point to get an S rank. This can range from 1 to 2 minutes. You won't really know until you finish a hunt and tested what time gets you what rank. Usually you should try your best to kill it under a minute if you want an S and aren't sure. Time is the only part of the score that awards you different points based on how fast you killed the monster, regardless of what rank you get. So even if you have an S rank and everything, someone could have a higher score if they S ranked everything faster than you. Parts. Very simple to get an S rank. Break every single part on the monster. You'll have to do some testing to see what you can actually break or cut off. You'll know you've broken every part when you get an S rank. Certain part breaks aren't what you'd expect on a monster, so there can be a lot of trial and error to see what parts are exactly breakable on a monster. So we've gone over how to get an S rank in each category, but how do you get an S rank for your overall score? It's pretty brutal. You need to get an S rank on everything simultaneously. So if you get an S in everything, but part break was A rank, you're going home with just an A rank. Basically, S ranking hunts in this game can be very difficult. You need to understand everything about a monster and put your execution skills to the test. Hunt the monster under a certain amount of time without getting hit, breaking all of its parts while doing enough of the hunt events to get enough mission bonus so you S rank the entire hunt. Some issues that can arise is the RNG nature of the fights. Sometimes monsters won't give you danger time to get a chance time for mission bonus and easier part breaks. Sometimes a monster likes to stall so you run out of time. For a lot of hunts, you need the perfect scenario, and it can be very frustrating when you almost S rank something but you fall short. And who would be crazy enough to S rank all these hunts anyways? Surely a madman. Items. Something you'd think that would help S ranking missions are the items that you can purchase and consume in this game. Not to be confused with supply items. There are 3 drinks you can consume. Power Drink will make you do considerably more damage and also gives you a big defense boost. The Timer Drink will slow down the timer to a snail's pace, and Lucky Drink will give you double the materials. You can pre-purchase the drinks to your heart's content, but you have to make sure to drink a specific one before a hunt for it to take effect. You can have all 3 active at once. If you consume a power drink, your life score will automatically be a D, making it impossible to S rank a hunt when consumed. It also has a subtle strawberry flavor. If you consume the Timer Drink, your time rank will be reduced to D. It has a subtle grape flavor. If you consume a material drink, your rank remains unchanged, meaning it's the only drink you can glug down and still end up with an S rank. These drinks are extremely expensive at 10,000 zenny apiece. Not only that, if you happen to fail a hunt or decide to reset for any reason, you still consume the drink you used, meaning you can waste a lot of zenny if you're not careful or get unlucky. I thought the high prices of these were odd, but I soon figured out why they were this way. In certain versions of the game, such as the New Zealand iOS version, you could go to the special add-on items menu below the regular items to buy the G version of the drinks. They're essentially the same, but instead of having to spend 10,000 zenny, you could buy them for 79 cents each. Even back in 2011, they found a way to sneak microtransactions in. Monster Hunter Now would be proud. Let's talk about the weapons in dynamic hunting. Once created, weapons can be upgraded up to 3 times. There are no weapon trees, and typically elements and status don't get stronger after upgrades, but raw damage does. Originally, the game only had 3 weapon types: Sword and Shield, Dual Blades, and Greatsword. The second update for the game introduced Hammer, and the final update introduced both the Lance and Gun Lance. This means that unfortunately there were never any gunner weapons in the game. That doesn't mean they weren't planning on it though. In the armory, you can check out the designs of each weapon you've unlocked. You're able to even move around the model to see everything about it. You can also do this with the armor sets in the game. Like normal Monster Hunter games, you can have weapons with fire, water, thunder, ice, and dragon elements, along with paralysis and poison as status. Sleep and blast don't exist in this game. Unlocking weapons and armor in this game can be a little frustrating. You need to have all of the materials needed in order to craft the item for it to even show up in the first place. On top of that, some weapons and armor only appear once you've successfully hunted monsters a certain amount of times. Let's get into the individual weapons and see what they're like. When using a weapon, you can learn a lot about it in advance if you take a look at the load screen when it's equipped. Next to the weapon icon, it lets you know how many times you can use your normal attack, defining the amount of hits your combo is. If the charge section is lit up, it means you can hold down on your screen to charge an attack like a Greatsword Slash or a Hammer Super Pound. If the block section is lit up, you can hold down 2 fingers to block attacks. Certain weapons that can block will also have something pop up on the loading screen called Auto Guard. Lastly, if the vertical and horizontal slash section lights up, it means you can either do vertical or horizontal slashes. Certain weapons can do both as well. Sword and Shield. The Sword and Shield is a versatile weapon in dynamic hunting, and it packs a surprising punch. The weapon boasts a 4-hit combo and allows you to block as well. The Sword and Shield can hold up to 4 stocks. It has a vertical slash called the Rising Slash. Remember that vertical slashes can counterattack monsters as well as down them when used no matter what. They have a horizontal slash called the Round Slash. Horizontal slashes don't down enemies, but they can counterattack, and after the slash you get an empowered version of your combo. So for the Sword and Shield, the combo from the Round Slash would become a 5-hit combo. The barrage attack is called the jumping slash combo. It's a huge 7-hit flurry of attacks, and since it's a barrage attack, you'll be invincible while doing this. It's a very satisfying special attack. The sword and shield has a wide variety of elemental and status weapons to play around with. The ability to block also comes very much in handy. It won't block things as well as the lance or gun lance, meaning you'll receive a bit more chip damage, but it can be very useful to simply block through yellow attacks instead of worrying about timing your rolls and rolling in the right direction. The downsides for this weapon though is its very small reach and how bouncy they can be against certain monsters. Also, in mainline Monster Hunter games, we're used to being able to use items with the weapon unsheathed. However, since every weapon in Dynamic Hunting can use items with their weapon out, the sword and shield no longer has that unique benefit. Still super agile though, has low committal moves and can dish out crazy combos when used correctly. The best combo I could hit was a 16-hit combo, which is the normal 4-hit combo into a horizontal 5-hit slash, and finally into the 7-hit barrage. The perfect all-rounder weapon, easy to use for beginners, tough to master for the pros. Dual blades. Our next weapon are the dual blades. In most Monster Hunter games, the dual blades are super flashy and fun to use, and Dynamic Hunting is no exception. The dual blades has a 6-hit normal combo, but has no blocking ability or a vertical slash. The dual blades can hold up to 6 stocks. The horizontal slash is called thrust attack, and it's a flashy 7-hit combo. The barrage attack is called devilish dance, and you enter an insane and quick 9-hit flurry, and feels really good to combo from a horizontal slash. The best combo I could do was a 57-hit combo, one normal combo into the 6 possible thrust attacks into a devilish dance. The dual blades are so quick that the horizontal slash combos into each other. Funnily enough, in the training mode, I could basically do an infinite combo going well over 100 consecutive hits. The dual blades in Dynamic Hunting, similar to the dual blades in general, are really good for dishing out elemental damage and status attack on monsters. Unlike other games, the dual blades in this one do not offer any split elements, so no fire and thunder, thunder and ice combined, etc. The dual blades are without a doubt one of the most fun and satisfying weapons to play in this game. Comboing the horizontal slashes with your normal attacks and barrage attack is really enjoyable. If you're getting a lot of chance times against monsters, you will be absolutely shredding them with these weapons. The dual blades lack defensive capabilities, and it suffers from similar problems with the sword and shield, where you can have instances where you bounce a lot and it's hard to reach certain vertical hit zones. But sometimes you can use the small reach of the dual blade to your advantage depending on the monster. I honestly think dual blades might be the most fun weapon to use in this game when used correctly. Next up is the Mighty Greatsword. It has incredible reach and can dish out some serious damage. This is a good time to bring up that weapons in this game often attack much faster than their mainline counterparts. The Greatsword is a good example of this. Despite having sluggish movements in regards to its weight, the attacks themselves feel very fast. The Greatsword is the only weapon with an infinite normal combo, overhead slash to a wide slash into a rising slash. When timed correctly, can get you an infinite combo in practice mode. And you could basically repeat this over and over on a monster until they get downed. The Greatsword can block, it has a charge attack, but it lacks a horizontal slash. The Greatsword has 3 stocks. The charge slash is called the overhead slash. It has a unique property where if you can get a full charge off, it will always flinch the monster. While the monster's flinching, you can start charging up again, so in certain situations, you can easily cheese down a couple health bars from a monster. The vertical slash is called the rising slash, and it's a great tool to quickly counterattack monsters or use to simply knock aerial monsters into the ground. The barrage attack is called the charge slash combo, and is a 3-hit attack, basically combining the wide slash, rising slash, and charged attack. You need to use this ult when the monster has a decent amount of health on their current health bar, and be positioned quite close to them, since hitting all 3 hits is hard to do if you don't meet those 2 requirements. They do a nice amount of damage though, and are super helpful for taking monsters' health bars down. The block Greatswords can do is very effective, and blocking attacks deal less chip damage than if you're blocking with the sword and shield. Thankfully, since there's no sharpness in this game, you don't have to worry about losing sharpness when you block with your Greatsword. Overall, the Greatsword is surprisingly versatile and can be used to tackle on almost every monster effectively. The raw strength and reach of this weapon cannot be overstated. The sword and shield, dual blades, and Greatsword were actually the only weapons available in the initial version of Dynamic Hunting. After some updates, it will add 3 more. After the second update, version 1.02, the hammer was added into the game, and it has a unique mechanic to it in Dynamic Hunting. The hammer is a beast when it comes to staggering, flinching, and stunning monsters, and actually has a huge advantage over other weapons disguised as a weakness. And the weakness is the fact that hammers, much like every other Monster Hunter game, cannot cut tails, for it is a blunt weapon with no cutting attacks. Well, we went over that if you don't break or cut every monster part, you can't get an S rank in the subsection, meaning you can't get an S rank at all, right? For some reason, they made the hammer the exception to that rule. If you break every single part that's possible with the hammer, you'll still get an S rank. For example, the Rathian has 5 part breaks, 2 for the head, 2 for the wings, 1 for the tail. In this hunt, I've broken all parts except for the tail cut and still received an S rank. This means hammer might be the easiest weapon to farm for S ranks on certain monsters, since you get to ignore something that's often annoying to cut, and you'll still get all the rewards and points along with any rare drops that are attached to the tail as well. Not too shabby. They could have easily made it the opposite effect and made it so it was impossible to S rank with the hammer, but I guess that wouldn't incentivize people to use the weapon. Alternatively, they could have made hammers able to cut tails, but perhaps that would have been too far-fetched. The hammer has a chargeable attack, but no ability to block and no vertical slash, and it has 3 stocks available to it. The hammer has a 3-hit normal combo that you all may be used to, 2 pounds into a golf swing. Whenever you land the golf swing, the monster will be down no matter what. This is both a good and bad thing. It makes it too hard to do a consecutive combo if you're going to down the monster every time with your basic 3-hit combo. There is a way to get around that though, and that involves the horizontal slash called the side smash. You do the classic hammer side attack into your normal combo, leading up to a max of 4 hits. The strat is to combo into a side smash before your golf swing so you don't knock the monster over until you want to. If you have maxed out stocks, you can combo this quite a few times. The hammer's barrage attack is called the round smash upswing, and it's essentially what a hammer charge attack while moving is, so a flurry of spinning attacks into an upswing. The normal 3-hit combo is too slow to combo into a side smash, so the best combo you can have with the hammer is a 3 normal attack into a 3-hit side smash, horizontal attacks into a barrage, tallying up to a 15-hit combo. We haven't even gotten to the most exciting part of the hammer, and that's its charged attack, the overhead smash. Something to note is that this game has no stamina bar, so you can have this charged infinitely. Unlike other games, there's only one possible attack you can do with the charged attack, simply the overhead smash, or the super pound as it's commonly referred to. The super pound has 2 interesting properties about it. The first one is if you land the super pound anywhere on a monster, you will always flinch it. The second is, if you land it specifically on the head, you will receive 1 of 3 star icons. Collect 3 by super pounding the monster's head and you'll receive a stun. Stars won't last forever though. Every 15 seconds you'll lose a star, to mimic stun tolerance from other games. No matter how many times you get a stun off though, the monster will stay down the same amount of time, and you'll always only need 3 stars to trigger it no matter what. And that's why Hammer is such a monster in this game. The amount of flinches, downs, and knockouts you have access to, on top of the ability to ignore the tail, makes this a fun and powerful weapon to use in any fight in dynamic hunting. You can KO your way through any monster. Next up is the Lance. This weapon was added along with Gun Lance in the 3rd and final update to the game. The Lance is incredibly good at both the offensive and defensive aspects of a weapon, with insane reach, which can actually be a problem. Because of its long range, it's oftentimes an issue where you're not hitting the hitbox you're actually trying to hit. For example, if you're too close and attacking the head, because of the range you'd actually be hitting their body instead, which could make it tough to break certain parts if you're not positioned correctly. The Lance is the first weapon to have the unique auto guard ability. In many Monster Hunter games, the one talisman they let you have at the beginning of the game would give you the auto guard skill, which would work with any weapon with a shield. It can even grant you some mission points by giving you a good or great rating for the timing. If you guard yourself instead of letting the auto guard proc, you will gain a stock instead. Speaking of stocks, the Lance can have up to 6 of them. Lance and Gun Lance are the only weapons that give you the ability to attack while blocking as well with a little poke, which can be quite useful to dish out a bit of damage while being in a safe position. Another freakish feature of the Lance is that there's no hopping involved. You roll just like any other weapon and it looks just bizarre on the Lance. Unnatural even. The Lance has a 3-hit normal attack combo. The Lance's vertical attack is called the High Thrust, which is just a big vertical poke that will knock down any monster. It's useful when you need to take down pesky flying monsters that refuse to touch the ground. It's quick and effective. The horizontal attack is a dash. You basically dash into your enhanced normal combo, which can be good if you need to approach a faraway monster, but sometimes you'll run past them instead and end up in a weird position, which is an issue that also arises with its barrage attack, the Super Dash. Essentially the same as a sprinting dash attack that Lances can do in other games, you bulldoze whatever is in your way for a 7-hit combo that ends with a poke. If you're in the perfect spot where all of your hits land, this ult is amazing. Also effective to catch up to monsters like the horizontal attack, but a lot can go wrong with your positioning, making it not the most reliable barrage attack out there, especially on smaller monsters. The horizontal slashes don't combo into each other, so the best combo I could get was the 3-hit normal combo into a horizontal dash into the super dash for a combo of 14 hits. The lance is an exceptionally strong weapon in dynamic hunting. It has great reach and damage capabilities while making you an absolute tank. It even has your back with auto guard when you least expect it. It can be a great weapon to help you clear tough hunts as long as you take great care in your positioning. The final weapon of dynamic hunting is the gun lance, except it's not really classified as a separate weapon. When the lance was released, the gun lance was released with it under the same category, meaning you would craft and upgrade gun lances and lances in the same section of the shop. Even in the training section, you select lance and it gives you an option between dash and shell. Picking shell would let you use the gun lance. This is especially confusing when you're using the gun lance because the weapon icon on the bottom left is still that of the lance. I lost count of how many people came into my stream confused on what weapon exactly I was using because of that. I do understand why they'd group them together like this. They do have a lot of similarities, but honestly, I think their differences make them worthy of being separated. Strangely combined weapon aside, the gun lance is no joke, and my personal favorite weapon to use in dynamic hunting. It can simply do almost everything I need it to do to be successful in almost any hunt. Just like the lance, the gun lance has a 3-hit normal combo. However, the range of the gun lance is significantly shorter than the lance, which may sound like a bad thing, but it makes it a lot easier to hit the actual part you want to with this weapon. It can also block, and it has a poke attack while blocking as well, but this one's arguably better because the angle is a lot more vertical. Because the poke comes out so quickly, this is a strong and viable way to attack certain parts of monsters that you otherwise couldn't with the normal attacks. The vertical attack is called the high thrust. You quickly dash forward and attack with a vertical attack, which is perfect for airborne enemies or hard to reach places. This attack is definitely slower than the lances, but it has its niche uses. The gun lance has 5 stocks compared to the lance's 6 stocks. The horizontal slash is simply called shelling. You release a quick explosion that can be followed up by an enhanced normal combo. Compared to the lance's horizontal slash, the initial shelling comes out much faster compared to the dash, making it an extremely good tool at counterattacking monsters, especially the ones with small windows of opportunity. The barrage attack is called continuous shelling, and it's similar to unleashing some wyvern fire. It's a 5-hit explosion that can do some serious damage, and it's fantastic at breaking parts, and it has a huge range on its explosions. The best combo I could get was a normal combo into 5 shelling combos into continuous shelling, ending at 28 hits. To me, the gun lance feels like a better version of the lance. Don't get me wrong, the lance is still great and has its uses where it outshines the gun lance, but after playing the lance for a long time and switching to gun lance, I can't go back. The attacks are quick, the defensive capabilities are the same, the poke attack's super useful, and not to mention, the explosions on this weapon can still be used to cut tails. It's been my go-to for many hunts for a reason. It's just really funny that to someone who isn't fully aware, it still just appears to be a lance. Now that we've gone over the 6 weapons of dynamic hunting, let's talk about some aspects that affects all weapons. Status on weapons are interesting in this game. There's only 2 of them, poison and paralysis, and quite frankly, they are not that great, especially on slower weapons. It takes a while for poison to proc, and when it does, it takes a few times for 10 damage. The poison throwing knife supply item is much more effective for dishing out poison damage. When using something like the sword and shield or dual blades, you'll be proccing the poison damage much more frequently, but because the damage is fixed at 10 per tick, it's not really worth using when given the choice to use an element the monster's weak to instead. Paralysis is somehow less useful. When paralyzed, monsters are knocked away, so oftentimes when you get close to them, by the time you're ready to attack, the paralysis is already over. It lasts what seems like 2 seconds. I have no idea why they made the paralysis so short. It's not really an opportunity for attack like most Monster Hunter games. It's more so a way to stop a monster in their tracks. Overall, there's really no point in using status weapons. Elemental weapons are the way to go. All monsters are weak to a certain element, and it'll increase your damage output much easier than any status weapon could. That being said, there are only 3 dragon element weapons in the game, and they are all great swords. So they kind of force your hand on that one if you want to use that specific element. The way elements and status are dispersed through the weapon types is questionable. Some may have 3 fire weapons, while the other may have none, or some weapons may not have paralysis weapons or water weapons at all. So it's really the luck of the draw to see whether or not your favorite type has the element you want it to have. At the end of the day, raw damage matters the most, so it's not the biggest deal if you don't have access to a specific element. And ultimately, this system incentivizes you to try out new weapon types for their element if you're having trouble with a specific monster. Upgrades. Weapons can be upgraded up to 3 times, requiring various materials and decent amounts of Zenny. Dynamic hunting keeps the tradition of older Monster Hunter games of requiring some outrageous amounts of materials for certain upgrades. For example, upgrading one of my lances took about 150 iron ores. On average, I would get about 2 iron ores per Kutku quest, so it took a lot of time to gather the materials I needed, which was something I was used to from other Monster Hunter games, so I felt at home. Again, there are certain materials needed for upgrades or even unlocking weapons that are only acquirable when you break all parts and get A rank or higher, and when you need many of these for upgrades, you can sink a lot of time in this game purely trying to max things out. Another interesting thing about materials in this game is that certain monsters drop materials of other monsters that aren't in the game. For example, Blue Yan Kutku drops Plesioth scales, even though Plesioth isn't in Dynamic Hunting. It reminds me how you could trade Kutku parts to the Veggie Elder in Monster Hunter 1 and receive Plesioth parts. There's even an Elder Dragon later in Dynamic Hunting that drops Lao Shan Lung parts. You don't have to worry about not having enough room for various materials since there's no real item box, but you do have to keep an eye on how many of a single item you have since it caps at 99 each. Similar to weapons, once created, armor can be upgraded 3 times before reaching max rank. Upgrading simply increases the armor's flat defense. You can't mix and match armor in this game, they only come as full sets. Each armor set can have up to 3 skills along with certain resistances to elements. Let's go over each of the armor skills available in this game. They were kind enough to describe each one in the tips section with the trainer. I believe these are the translated names, so the armor skills were probably named more like their counterparts in localized Monster Hunter games. I'll read out their description in the game for you and try to make some sense of it. Critical hits percent up. Greatly increases your chance of a critical hit, so something very similar to having a high amount of the expert skill. Doesn't really go into how much more crit you get, but I guess it's safe to assume it's a lot. I know this doesn't make you crit every single hit, so it's not a 100% boost. Unstoppable. Your attacks won't bounce off of monsters. So essentially the skill Mind's Eye. This can be very useful against bouncy monsters, especially when those bouncy parts are the only means of getting part breaks. Get up faster. Recover quickly even if you get knocked back. Basically, this means when you get knocked down by a monster, you get back up much faster. Not the most useful skill, especially if you're trying to go for S ranks, because you never want to get hit. That's going to be the story for most defensive skills, but there is a certain secret point of the game where defensive skills actually come in handy, but we'll get to that much later. No instant deaths. Even if you're dealt more damage than you can take, your health will only drop to 1 and you won't die. Much like the skill Guts, it protects you from death when you're above a certain amount of HP, and once again, like Guts, if the monster can do some damage over time like poison or fire, you're cooked. Movement speed up. Move faster than usual. Definitely one of the best armor skills in the game, hands down. With lighter weapons, you can move incredibly fast, and with heavier weapons, you can move at a speed that's not totally frustrating. Can be essential to taking advantage of downed monsters by enabling you to position quickly and efficiently. Full slash stock. Start with the max number of slash attacks in stock. Usually you start with about half. This allows you to be maxed out at the beginning, which could help for certain opening setups when fighting against monsters, especially when searching for that S rank. Anti-poison, you can't be poisoned, pretty self-explanatory. Anti-paralysis, you can't be paralyzed. Anti-sleep, you can't be put into the sleep status. Roar cancel. Roars will have no effect on you. Works just like high-grade earplugs. Certain monsters love to roar constantly, so this can be essential depending on the hunt. Anti-quake. Ground tremors will have no effect on you. I don't think I've been tremored once in this entire game, so perhaps this armor skill was for a monster they never added. Wind cancel. Wind will have no effect on you. On certain hunts, this armor skill can spare you a lot of frustration. And those are all the armor skills. In my opinion, the theoretical best armor set would have movement speed up, critical hits percent up, and unstoppable. You could swap out unstoppable for roar cancel or something like that depending on what you're hunting. Something really interesting about armor sets are the elemental defenses. They work similarly to other games. The higher your elemental resistance, the less damage you take from that element. If it's in the negatives, you take a lot more damage from the specific element. In dynamic hunting, if your fire element resistance is at a certain threshold, it can have a bonus effect. If you have 20 fire resistance, you would no longer get damaged by flame aura, which comes in really handy later in the game. Now that we know about our weapons and armor, we can check our loadout in the equipment screen when we select a hunt. In this menu, we see our stats, we can move around our hunter, which is really fun, and we can also check our stock of potions in the item section and consume them for the next hunt if we wish, or check out our materials. The materials section kind of acts like an item storage box. We don't have to worry about how many inventory spots we have, like again, materials are capped at 99. Also in here, you can read the descriptions of each material if you select them. Now, we've covered a lot already, but before we get into the monsters and progression of the game, let's fully go over the mode select or menu of the game since there are some interesting things to see and talk about. In the training section, we spoke to the instructor and he gave us a lot of information on armor sets. What else does he have to say? In the basics, you can go over the general controls as well as the meaning of the UI elements on the hunt screen. You can also enter a tutorial quest. The tutorial quest allows you to rename yourself if you choose as a bonus. It's a very simple quest. You end up facing a Yan Kutku. You can wear any gear to this, so if you're at the end of the game, you could actually just bring the best stuff and annihilate the poor guy. What's interesting about this tutorial quest is that not only do you get rewards for hunting Kutku, you get double the materials, as if you were using a lucky drink. This could potentially be the fastest and cheapest way to farm certain materials like iron ore, which I mentioned earlier was needed in abundance for certain weapons and upgrades. The About Weapons section. After selecting a weapon to look at, you can either check the information or practice with them. The information section gives you a description of each weapon, along with what weapons can and can't do, along with names for their slashes and barrages. Most of the weapon descriptions are pretty normal, but I'd like to take a moment to read the Greatsword weapon description in my version of dynamic hunting. Giant swords as big as you are, but that's what makes these swords great. Sure, they're heavy, but they possess a wide range of attack and high attack power, on top of making you hard to topple. You can even block with them, but it's not all good news. They can be a bit unwieldy due to their massive girth, so use them with caution. Moving on, let's check out practice mode for these weapons. Once we select a weapon for practice mode, we must once again face the poor Yan Kutku in an endless battle. Here we can test out all of our moves. Our barrage attack can be used non-stop, same with vertical and horizontal slashes, and Kutku will just sit there doing nothing, taking all the pain. You can flinch and down him, but you can't kill or break any parts. You don't have any access to extra items like shock traps or anything, but still a great way to try out some combos and teach yourself how to roll correctly in this damn game. The last things he goes over are the beginner and advanced tips, which is basically much of what I've already talked to you about. The Hunter's Log has some very cool stuff to look at. We can check out our guild card here that displays our name, hunter rank, title, and general stats and loadout, as well as total playtime. It also says when this app was last updated and claims it as the year 2000, which I think might be slightly incorrect. In the hunting record, it shows your score for each monster, your rank, your high score for each fight, along with your total score at the bottom. I wonder if total score was something ranked on the iOS leaderboards. Weapon usage is pretty straightforward, showing you how many times you've used weapons in your hunts. And the final section is the achievements. There are various ways to unlock them, and in classic dynamic hunting fashion, they won't tell you how until after you've unlocked them. As you progress through the game, you'll at least get most of them. Some of the achievement icons even use the monster icons from previous games. If you tap on an achievement, you equip the name of the achievement as a title that will appear on your guild card. This is probably one of my favorite features of this game, and that is the blue video icon on the top right. Added in the third and final update to the game, this is the replay feature. Somehow, this little app had the technology to save replays of your hunts to be replayed whenever you wanted, and this helped greatly in regards to getting footage for this video. Replays keep track of your score, rank, as well as what loadouts you were using for the hunt, and can replay the entire hunt in full. You can tell you're watching a replay by seeing the pulsing replay icon in the top right. The funny thing is, not every hunt is eligible to become a replay. If you continue at all, so basically cart once, you can't save a replay. If you use a power or slow drink, you can't save one either. During the replay, if you tap the screen, you can kind of get an overhead view of the battle, which is pretty neat. Overall, a very useful feature for many reasons that I'm glad they added. Now, I'm using a translated Android version of Dynamic Hunting, and that doesn't have the same features of the iOS version of the game. And certain iOS versions have differences depending on the region, like the paid potions in the New Zealand version of the game. iOS versions of the game allowed you to tweet the results of your hunt and high scores, as well as respond and reply to others, and even exchange info and show off your titles and achievements. The iOS versions also had a leaderboard you could check to see who had the best scores and ranks. Probably the most interesting iOS-specific feature is the local co-op multiplayer. Not to be confused with some type of online multiplayer. You have to be physically near each other in order to use this feature. Unfortunately, I have spent hours scouring through English and Japanese video and could not find footage of what the co-op functionality would be like. The description claims that even if one of you lost, you both would receive rewards. I'd assume that both of you would be in the same instance fighting the same monster, but a lot of the game's mechanics are geared towards focusing on fighting one person specifically, so it'd be very strange mechanically at times. It's possible it could have been separate fights with shared rewards. Not saying there's absolutely no footage out there of local co-op, but it seems like very, very few people had the means to both play on their phones or iPads together and also have another camera set up to record them playing together. If anyone has footage of this, do let me know. I'm very curious on what it looks like. Now we have all of the menu information and features out of the way. It's time to go over this game's progression while diving into each monster and hunt this game has to offer. There's an incredible variety of monsters and mechanics the game dishes out here, so it'll be a lot of fun uncovering all the mysteries of these hunts. We spent a lot of time talking and dissecting the various mechanics of the game, so it's going to be fun to see how they collide with the mechanics of these monsters to create some truly dynamic hunting. A lot of the monsters featured in Dynamic Hunting are monsters that are huntable from Monster Hunter Portable 2nd. It seems they were very inspired by that specific roster. At this point, we're pretty familiar with Yan Kutku, but there's plenty more to talk about when it comes to this monster, and it's a good opportunity to mention certain aspects about hunts in general as well, like the environment he's in. Every monster in this game is fought in a familiar environment. The environments themselves, however, don't have a specific official name to them in the game. The Yan Kutku is fought in the Forest and Hills. The music that plays is the same one you hear when in combat in Forest and Hills as well. Whenever you get a monster down to its last health bar or enter chance time, the music always switches to the Rathalos theme. The game plays Proof of a Hero in the menu, so it honestly has a decent collection of tracks. Back to the Kutku here, it's a relatively simple hunt with only one part break, and that's his head. Simply break the head and you'll get an S rank in the part category. Kutku also lowers his ears when he's at low HP, just like the other Monster Hunter games. Fun fact, the only Monster Hunter game where he doesn't lower his ears when he's weak is in the Japanese version of Monster Hunter 1. He's weak to water, thunder, and ice element, and has 2 health bars. Kutku has simple and familiar moves, tail swings, fireballs, and pecks. Most of his attacks can be easily blocked or rolled away from. His danger time is very straightforward. He does 2 spins in the same direction, so dodging to the right twice will grant you an excellent, which gives you the opportunity to counterattack and nab a quick and easy chance time to turn Kutku into tonight's dinner. A simple and easy fight that teaches you the basics of dynamic hunting and gets the job done effectively. You'd think that after clearing a hunt, the silhouettes of the monsters you've hunted gets replaced with the filled out image of the monster, but no. For the rest of the game, they'll forever stay as shadows. Eventually, you'll know which silhouette is which monster, but I can definitely see it being confusing to some people. On top of that, you get a giant letter for what your highest score is on the quest select screen. When you're new to the game, you'll be seeing a lot of Ds. After successfully hunting the Kutku, we are met with our next hunt, the Congalala. We fight him this time in the jungle from Monster Hunter DOS with the accompanying music. Another simple fight, Congalala throws out some claw swipes, sticks out his belly, he can fly out towards you, and land on his belly, and if you're far enough away from him, he'll fling stinky poop at you. Surprisingly, he doesn't have a simple fart attack or breath moves. Congalala has 3 part breaks, the head and 1 for each claw. When you break a claw, he falls over, giving you a good opportunity for attacks. When you break his head, he only flinches though. Congalala is weak to fire element in dynamic hunting and has 3 health bars. During danger time, he does his classic 3 claw attacks before falling onto his back. If you roll correctly left, right, and left, followed by a final roll at the end, you'll receive an excellent and can counterattack for a chance time. Congalala also has another way to trigger a chance time. When he expands his tummy, if you attack it, nothing will really happen and you'll bounce. However, if you go behind him and use a slash attack, you'll trigger a chance time. So there's plenty of damage opportunities to take down this pink ape. I'd still consider this a pretty easy fight, but all the mechanics of dynamic hunting working together here makes this a really fun monster to hunt. The third monster of the level 1 category is the Daimyo Hermitor. You face him in the first gen desert while it plays the Monoblos theme, which makes sense considering that's the skull on the back of this monster. This is the first quest to give an extra supply item, the barrel bomb, 3 to be exact. Simply dropping a barrel bomb down will have it automatically explode after a few seconds, so it acts more like a traditional small barrel bomb. The barrel bomb flinches the monster once detonated, but it has a unique property in this fight I'll go over later. The Daimyo Hermitor is weak to fire and thunder and has 3 health bars in total. The Daimyo has an interesting list of attacks. He can stab you with either of his claws. If you're far enough away, he can do his classic water spit attack. He has a long-range double swipe that closes a good amount of distance. He has an attack where he simply burrows into the ground and comes out with a stabbing attack that you have to roll from. And finally, the last move is the crab counter. Hermitor goes into defensive mode, and if you attack him, he'll quickly swipe back at you. It's so fast actually, you can't block it. However, if you drop a bomb instead of attacking, you'll trigger the secret chance time for some killer damage. When Daimyo goes into danger mode, he attacks similar to the burrow from earlier, but he does it 3 times in a row instead. The timing for this attack is really tight, and it's unblockable. If you remember, this is one of the moves early in this game that really punishes you if you haven't mastered the art of rolling in dynamic hunting, which honestly is a hard thing to learn. But I did come out stronger with my practice with the Hermitor. The Daimyo has 3-part breaks, one for each claw, and you break the tip of the horn of the Monoblow skull. There's a lot of tough lessons to learn from fighting this crustacean, but they're important if you want to be successful in hunting the monsters that are in dynamic hunting, let alone having a chance at S-ranking them. The final fight of the first level of dynamic hunting is the lovable freak Kezu. You fight Kezu in the portable second Snowy Mountain, and it's strange to say, but yes, Kezu has an actual audible fight theme in this game, being of course the Snowy Mountain theme. This may be one of the strangest fights in this game because there's no known way to successfully do the danger time. When danger time begins, Kezu does an unblockable bite attack that you must dodge to the right, followed by a thunderbolt attack. This move is really weird. You have to roll on a very precise timing just to get an okay. I find it a lot easier to have a weapon with a shield and move back and block it for a great. And then he does the thunder charge, which is unblockable and unrollable. No matter how you roll or when you roll, you will just never get an excellent. If you're too close, you'll always get hit. I've tried testing many things out, even equipping gear with thunder and paralysis resistance with no luck. I spent hours testing if there was a way, and after researching some Japanese websites and videos, they don't know how to do it either. It's still possible there's some really obscure way to do it that somehow nobody thought of, but it would have to be some unprecedented method. Don't worry though, there's thankfully still a way to get a chance time, and that's through the new supply item we've obtained for this fight, the poison throwing knives. Unlike poison weapons, poison knives do a considerable amount of poison damage over a short period of time. However, it can never go past a full health bar, so you'll have to hit the monster at least once for it to tick damage again. This fight gives us 3, and if we use a poison knife right when the red spark shows up during his stationary electricity charge, you get a juicy chance time, and will be your only opportunity to get some good mission bonus score and damage. So, Kezu's attacks do paralyze you if you get hit by any of his thunder, and he's the first monster we've faced that roars. Having armor with anti-paralysis or roar cancel will negate both these effects, which coincidentally the Kezu armor has. Also, the Kezu is quite weak to fire in this game and has 4 health bars. Kezu only has 2 breaks, one on his head that is shown by a scar, and his stomach. Definitely a confusing fight to figure out for a lot of reasons, but aside from the quirks, it introduced mechanics that could be mitigated by armor skills and was overall pretty faithful to the original Kezu, aside from the BGM of course. With Kezu successfully hunted, I finished the first level of Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. So what does that mean exactly? Well, now I have access to level 2, which will have another 4 monsters to take down. Starting with the Basiarios that resides in the Gen 2 volcano biome with the accompanying music. This can definitely be a wall for a lot of people because you're basically fighting a thick, giant, bouncy rock. This time we get a supply item that's more on the defensive side, being the antidote to deal with Basiarios' poison gas in case you get hit. Getting poison from a monster usually isn't too bad, but if you're not paying attention, it could easily cause you to cart. Basiarios isn't weak to any particular element and has 4 health bars. Basiarios has a modest moveset in his arsenal. He's got a simple bite attack. All you gotta do is dodge this one to the right. A tail spin, simply blocking this one or rolling to the left works. His hip check is interesting. It's much different than the timing of the other attacks we've faced so far. After a big delay, you can roll to the left or simply block it. Basiarios has the poison gas I mentioned earlier. You can block this, but if you have no shield, you gotta make sure you're spacing correctly to not get hit by this. The sleep gas can be dealt in the same manner, but it does hit twice, so make sure to block or avoid both. Of course, you can use armor that has anti-sleep and anti-poison to not worry about these effects, which Basiarios conveniently has on his armor set. Basiarios has a move where he spits out a fireball. If you counter with the right timing when he's charging it up, you will get the blessed secret chance time. When he's in danger mode, he will do a 4-hit combo. Simply dodge right, left again, and then right to claim your excellent and counterattack. Now, Basiarios is a fight where you desperately need these chance times to do some good damage on him. He has an incredibly tough hide that will almost always bounce unless you're hitting the head or his stomach. He's a fight where having the unbreakable skill, aka Mind's Eye, is very useful. And thankfully the Daimyo Hermitor armor can offer you that for this fight to get rid of the headache of all that bouncing would give you. When down, he also rolls pretty far away, so he definitely enjoys wasting our time. I can see this monster timing people out if they don't know the right strats or have the right tools. Basiarios has 3 breaks, 2 for his stomach and 1 for his tail. You can easily tell when you break his stomach the first time since the inside of him gets exposed. It's not as easy to tell when you break it the second time, so pay attention to the white flash. Cutting the tail is actually very difficult since it's so small and high up. It's a very precise hitbox to hit, so I'd opt to use something like the dual blade to get the cut or the hammer to ignore cutting that part completely. Basiarios is a very interesting fight because if you're not aware of his quirks, this can seem like an unreasonably tough fight. However, if you take the time to learn the hunt by trying new things, it's very satisfying to take him down quickly, with your newfound knowledge. Our next monster is our very first subspecies. Yes, dynamic hunting introduces subspecies to face, and they have notable differences to make it feel like a brand new fight compared to their original counterparts. We fight Blue Yan Cuckoo in the 2nd gen swamp, with the swamp music that plays in Portable 2nd appearing as the BGM. We're introduced to a new supply item, the Flash Bomb. Unlike other games, you can toss the Flash Bomb wherever you wish, and it'll still go off, so you don't have to be precise at all with your aim. The Flash Bomb downs and stuns the monster for a decent amount of time, so it's good to just use to get some damage in. Cuckoo doesn't go airborne, so it's not used to knock him down into the ground that way. Blue Cuckoo is weak to water, thunder, and ice, and has 4 health bars. The Blue Yan Cuckoo is similar to the original, but his moves are a lot more fast-paced, and he has a few more tricks up his sleeve. He can delay his attack, then bite, and sometimes he can do multiple bites instead to throw you off. He has a normal tail swipe as well as his usual fireball attack. He does a variation of the fireball where he just stands there and shoots 5 of them in a row like an absolute madman. Lastly, he has his classic quick peck move and the quick dash into falling over. This move is the secret to getting that elusive chance time. If you throw a flash bomb as he's running over to you, you'll activate it. This one's pretty tough to activate just because of how quickly the move comes out. It took a lot of testing to finally figure out what gets him to enter the secret chance time. His danger mode is a very simple thing to deal with. He attacks 4 times, and you can get an excellent as long as you roll to the right 4 times. Actually, this entire monster's arsenal can be dealt with if you simply roll to the right. The Blue Yan Cuckoo has the same breaks as the regular Cuckoo, just the head, but this time you have to break it twice. With all of that in mind, the Blue Yan Cuckoo is not a difficult fight by any means, but there's an interesting and noticeable progression in difficulty and mechanics compared to the original and first hunt in the game. It's time to fight another monkey. This time we're back in the snowy mountains facing the Blangonga. In this hunt, we're equipped with yet another new supply item, the Shock Trap. The Shock Trap is pretty straightforward. You take some time to place it down, and when the monster touches it, they'll be paralyzed for a while. Much longer than if you were to paralyze them with a status weapon. For Blangonga, if you Shock Trap him and immediately hit one of his arms with a regular attack, it will get you a chance time opportunity. Blangonga is weak to fire and likes to roar often, so wear roar cancel armor for this fight or bring a weapon with a shield. He has 4 health bars. Blangonga has a variety of moves. He has a basic slap attack and can shoot out an ice blast. He often jumps away large distances and has moves to close that distance back to you, like with his jumping clothesline attack. He also has a running charge attack that he often combos into back hopping onto you. If you're far enough away, he'll also throw an enormous snowball at you. During danger time, Blangonga does an ice blast, a jumping attack into a back hop, and after a delay, a slam. You can block most of these or simply dodge all of them to the right to get an excellent and have an opportunity for a counterattack. Blango has 2 breaks, his face and his tail. The tail break can be hard to get if you don't position yourself correctly. Overall, this is a much different hunt than the other one just because of how Blangonga positions himself and his fondness of side hops. Getting the Shock Trap to proc can be difficult too because he likes to jump over it. That being said, once you know you can get easy chance times with the shock traps, the hunt becomes a lot easier to deal with. Our last hunt of level 2 is a fun one, the Queen of the Skies, Rathian. We're once again in the forest and hills to face this fearsome wyvern, and we're given antidotes as supply items to deal with her poison backflips. If you're familiar with hunting Rathian, then this fight should not be difficult for you at all. Although getting all the part breaks on this monster is not easy. There are 4 part breaks, the head, a tail cut, and left and right wing. Rathian is weak to Dragon, which as you all know, only the Greatsword possesses that element. Rathian, despite roaring a lot in mainline games, does not possess a roar in dynamic hunting, so you luckily don't have to worry about that. She does have a wind move though, so having wind cancel could be good to have on your armor. She has a running charge move as well as an unblockable bite. This move in particular has a weird back hitbox, so you have to watch out for that. Rathian has a tailspin attack as well as her classic triple fireball that you can block. She can run up to you and poison backflip, and this is one of the more obvious chance times to hit. Simply use a slash attack after she backflips for an easy chance time opportunity. Lastly, her danger move is pretty simple to dodge. She bites twice in a row and tail spins. You just have to dodge to the right again, and then to the left to get an excellent. For me, figuring out what all of her breaks were and how to successfully get them all was the biggest challenge of this fight. Actually taking her down wasn't too difficult. Despite having 5 health bars, she doesn't feel too tanky. After hunting down this wyvern, we are now finished with the 2nd level of dynamic hunting. We're on to level 3, and the hunts here start getting intense. And something I haven't mentioned yet is that the further we progress in the game, the less potions they give us. But if you're aiming to be good enough to challenge S ranks, don't even worry about sipping on those green bottles. Our first level 3 monster is the Yan Garuga, and we face him in the jungle. He has 5 health bars and is weak to water. Yan Garuga has a lot of similar elements to the Rathian, but unlike her, this fight is supplied with flash bombs. Garuga likes flapping his wings, so anti-wind can also help here. He's also super bouncy, especially in areas that are breakable, so having the unbreakable armor skill equipped for this fight is really useful. Garuga has very similar moves to Rathian, but some are different enough to keep your eye out. He has a bite, and a tailspin, and another tailspin that he runs up to you first, and then delays to catch you on a different timing. He has the classic poison backflip. He doesn't run up before doing it, he's just completely stationary. He has a peck move, a very quick instant charge, and a triple fire attack. It's comical how you trigger the secret chance time for Garuga. It's exactly like Rathian, except instead of using a slash attack, you throw a flash bomb. It's very important you abuse chance times for this fight if you don't have the unbreakable skill, because again, Garuga's very bouncy in some crucial spots. For danger time, Garuga does his bite attack into a peck, tailspin, and finally the backflip. The easiest way to deal with this is simply roll to the right with the correct timing. Garuga's breaks are 2 for the face, 2 for the wings, and a tail cut. Because Garuga is so tiny, getting those wing breaks are a lot more difficult than it may seem. A lot of the mechanics we face in this hunt are things we've learned from previous monsters, so overall it's nothing too difficult, just for the sake of clearing it. Our favorite creepy thing has a subspecies and now we must hunt them. The Red Khezu is fought in the swamp and we're given poison throwing knives. Red Khezu is weak to water and has 5 health bars. The Red Khezu has a lot of different moves to deal with and to look out for. For example, he has 3 different bite attacks. One from the left, one where he extends his neck more in the middle, and another where his neck turns into a goddamn snake and comes out really quickly. He also has a tailspin and a long-range lunging attack. This one doesn't have any electricity to it though. Lastly, his electric ball move shoots 5 of them, and if you throw the poison throwing knife during the large windup, you'll get a secret chance time. Unlike the original Khezu, you can actually do a successful danger time. During the danger time, Red Khezu throws out electric balls, which you should either block or roll precisely to get an okay, into a bite, forward bite, and the extremely long bite that comes out really quickly. The timing for this is so fast you have to roll preemptively to get an excellent here. It's no joke. There's 3 breaks for Red Khezu, 2 breaks for the head, and 1 break for the stomach. The stomach break is surprisingly difficult to get. I found the most success aiming near the wings when he's down from the chance time. The Red Khezu loves to roar, so bringing a weapon that can block or roar cancel will save you a lot of frustration. Personally, I much prefer fighting this Khezu than the original, just because everything in this fight just works, even if it's a more difficult fight overall. Returning to the volcano, we now face the formidable Shogun Cyanator. He is weak to Thunder Element and has 5 health bars. We are reunited with the Shock Trap supply item this time around. An interesting thing about him is that just like in the other games, he can show up with 3 different shells: Gravio's Skull, the Unidentified Shell, and the Spiral Seashell. Compared to the Daimyo Hermitor, the Shogun Cyanator is a lot faster. Cyanator only burrows during danger time, but danger time occurs quite frequently with him, so if you don't want to deal with it, you can put down a shock trap to stop him in his tracks. Now, if you shock trap him and immediately use a slash attack, you'll get the secret chance time in a similar manner to Blangonga. The Cyanator loves sprinting towards you if you're far away from him. The Cyanator loves his claw moves. He's got the double claw swipe, the right claw swipe, the double claw poke, the single claw poke, the spinning claw attack, and the unblockable running attack with his claws out. Since he likes using them so much, you may as well break them. The 3-part breaks of the Shogun is the left claw, right claw, and his shell. Unlike the Daimyo, you can completely break off his shell this time around, which makes it much more obvious when you get the break. His danger time is simple to deal with if you have good reaction times. Dodge his 3 pokes from the ground with some rolls, roll for his claw attack after, and then roll to the left for his final claw attack, and you'll get the excellent. The Shogun Cyanator is just another test of quick reflexes. At this point, if you don't have a good grasp on rolling, this will be a tough hunt, but otherwise a straightforward battle. The final hunt of level 3 is the Monoblos, and what a hunt to end it on. He has a whopping 6 health bars. We face him in the desert, and he's weak to both thunder and ice. We're given barrel bombs as our supply item of choice. Now, barrel bombs do a lot of flat damage to monsters, but it's imperative you save them for the right moments if you want to efficiently deal with the Monoblos. Monoblos loves digging into the ground and launching into you, but if you put down a barrel bomb in a very specific timing, it'll explode just as he's about to launch, landing you a secret chance time. I'm not exaggerating about the specific timing. If you're a bit too early, you'll blow him out of the ground, but he'll just flinch. Too late and you'll get hit. You want to place the bomb down while he's digging, but before he's entirely submerged. Aside from burrowing, there are plenty of other moves the Monoblos has in his arsenal. He has a bite attack, a quick tail spin, double tail swipe, If you're behind Monoblos, he's going to aggressively use these tail moves, so you can bait them out by being there, but the tail swipes have a pretty big range, so be careful. Monoblos has a horn launch attack, as well as the classic hip check that can be a little tough to dodge. He has various charge attacks, a simple charge where he slides afterwards, a fake out charge that leads into a bite. The fake out can be easy to spot if you simply wait for the flash to happen. If you don't see a flash when he starts running, that's going to be a fake out. Danger time is leap into a bite, a spin, lastly into a hip check. Roll left, right, and left, and counterattack for the chance time. There's only 2 breaks to worry about with Monoblos, just a tail cut and breaking his horn. He's also another monster that's pretty bouncy aside from his legs, so you want to nail those chance time opportunities to make the fight a lot easier, especially since Monoblos is one tanky fella. The fight overall tests you on your knowledge of the game. The secret chance time is hard to get, but at this point, you'd know you have to use the barrel bombs in some way. Monoblos was actually the final fight of the base game of dynamic hunting. Similar to the end of the village in Monster Hunter 1, Monoblos would be your final battle. It pays homage to the first game, and it's a really fun and engaging fight to end it on. But we're not out of the woods yet. Dynamic hunting introduced some difficult fights in its second update, with the introduction of level 4. The first fight in this level is the hunt that I struggled the most with before making a big change and learning everything I could about the game and its deranged control scheme. This was a huge wall for me, the pink Rathian. I feel like any game I fight her in, she just kicks my ass, and dynamic hunting is no exception. We fight her in the jungle and she's weak to only dragon, which is again a tough element to come by in a weapon. Pink Rathian has 6 health bars and is bouncier than most monsters and is overall just plain tanky. Hitting most areas on her do little to no damage, so this is absolutely a fight where the timer comes into play. It's easy to time out if you're not getting those chance times. The chance time isn't too hard to figure out in this fight since the supply items are flash bombs. To get the secret chance time, just throw the flash bomb after her backflip while she's still flapping in the air. She can either backflip once or twice, and I personally find it easier to time throwing the flash bomb during the second flip. It's a lot more consistent for me. Even when she's chance time, she doesn't take that much damage, so you'll just have to DPS like crazy for this fight, especially if your weapon isn't super upgraded or anything. Once again, if you don't want to deal with all the bounciness, try the Unbreakable Armor skill to get that Mind's Eye. Aside from the backflips, Pink Rathian has some scary moves. We have the classic bite and tailspin and the familiar triple fire blast. The scariest moves involve her instant charge. It could be a single instant charge or 3 in a row before she falls over. They're technically blockable, but for some reason this move has so many continuous hitboxes. If you shield this, your health will get completely shredded. It's insane. For danger time, all she does is 3 attacks. A tailspin, you dodge to the left, followed by a backflip and a final backflip. Dodge correctly to earn your excellent and chance time. As if dealing with all the bounciness wasn't enough, you have to break 4 parts in Rathian. Cut the tail, break the head, and somehow manage to break both left and right wings, which can be very tough. Pink Rathian is a brutal fight until you've fought her many times. She was the biggest wall for me for a while, and it makes sense that they wanted to start off the new level from an update with a difficult fight to show you that they were not messing around. Eventually, when she got taken down, it felt really good to be successful in a difficult hunt, and she was a sign of what was to come in the final stretch of hunts in dynamic hunting. Our next hunt is the terrifying Tigrex. We fight him in his rightful domain, the Snowy Mountains. Tigrex, like Pink Rathian, is only weak to Dragon element in this game and has 6 health bars. Facing the Tigrex, it is essential you equip yourself with Roar Cancel or a weapon with a shield. This guy roars more than any other monster, so if you come unprepared, you're going to be completely stun locked. The supply item we've been bestowed for this hunt is the Shock Trap. At this point, you probably have a good idea on how to activate the secret chance time. Simply slash attack the head when Tigrex is shock trapped to activate it. Getting him in the trap isn't so simple though. If he gets trapped while you're still in the animation of placing it down, you may not have enough time to properly get an attack for the chance time since the window of opportunity is so short. And if you place it down from afar, Tigrex can do a leaping attack that could jump over the trap or hit you first before being shocked. It's important to master how to activate his chance times though, because he has a whopping 5 part breaks to deal with, and having him stationary are the best opportunities to get those breaks. The breaks are a tail cut, left wing, right wing, and 2 separate head breaks. Danger time is very simple to deal with. He bites twice and then leaps. Simply dodge to the right, then to the left, then wherever to obtain an excellent. Tigrex has deceptively simple moves that have variation to keep the average hunter on their toes. The aforementioned roar will not only stun you, but do damage to you if you're close enough, so you'll have to space or block this. Classic Tigrex charge will be used to approach you, and sometimes he'll follow it up with a second charge. Tigrex can bite and double bite, and sometimes do a fake out attack before double biting as well. Tigrex can do an unblockable leap, and sometimes he'll follow it up with yet another leap to close the distance. If you're close enough, he can do a spinning attack, and lastly, if you're far enough, he'll toss some snow at you. The main strategy for Tigrex is to roll out of the way of his fast attacks and stay behind him. His roar hitbox doesn't extend behind him, and sometimes this way you'll kind of lock him into roaring over and over while you do damage from the back. Overall, a fun fight and relatively easy if you come prepared, and can potentially be a nightmare if you don't. The Gravios, a giant beast of a monster. This fight is much more harrowing than the Bessarios we fought so long ago. We face Gravios in the volcano. He's both weak to water and dragon and has 6 health bars. There's been a lot of monsters we face where bouncing is an issue. This is probably the most bounce-inducing creature on this side of dynamic hunting. Having Unbreakable on your armor is going to save you a lot of hardship. He is the epitome of tankiness, which is why the supply items for the fight is 3 poison throwing knives to help whittle down his health. Gravios also roars a lot and will always roar when knocked down and gets back up, so shield or cancel accordingly. This can be a pretty frustrating and difficult fight because of how durable he is and all the moves in his arsenal. You can start doing a lot more damage to Gravios once you break his stomach. You can tell because of the pink stuff being exposed. He has 2 stomach breaks, as well as a tail cut. You can take advantage of the fact that Gravios does the same patterns when getting up, which is getting up, roaring, and then doing his fire beam attack when you understand how to do the secret chance time. All you need to do is throw your poison throwing knife very early into his fire beam animation. This is a lot harder to pull off when you're unsure when he's going to do the fire beam, so knowing he'll almost always do it after being knocked down will make it much easier to predict and land the poison knife. His other moves are a bite attack, tail spin, sleep gas, fire gas, a running charge attack, and a multi-hit tail attack if you're behind him. His danger time is relatively simple. He tail spins, hip checks, and does a fire beam, which can all be dealt with by rolling to the left with the right timing. The biggest hurdle when it comes to this fight is doing enough damage and not bouncing too much while avoiding all of his beams and gases. A scary fight, but after enough practice, the Gravios can be something easily conquered. The final hunt of level 4 is the King of the Skies himself, Rathalos. This is one of the most mechanically dense hunts in the game, and it's easy to get absolutely destroyed by this guy. We get treated to facing him in a brand new biome, and an interesting one at that. We face him in the Grand Arena, accompanied by arena music from Portable Second. Fighting in a brand new biome is exciting, but the arena is the smallest area yet, and that causes some issues with this hunt that I'll get into later. The supply item of this fight is the Barrel Bomb, but unlike every quest before this that had the Barrel Bomb, it is not used for a secret chance time. In fact, Rathalos doesn't have a secret chance time at all. The Barrel Bomb's purpose in this fight is to knock Rathalos down from the sky, because this dude lives there for most of the fight. Rathalos is weak to ice in this game and has a whopping 7 health bars, so you definitely want to put those Barrel Bombs down for some damage. As if the mass amounts of health weren't enough, he has 5 part breaks, 2 for the head, 1 for each wing, and lastly a tail cut. Like most harder hunts, your best opportunity for damage is going to be during the chance time you can acquire through Rathalos' danger time. This danger time is not possible to do without either wind cancel or a shield. Rathalos shoots a fireball, which also causes wind, and then flies at you 2 times before hitting you with his aerial homing poison attack. There are multiple elements of this that can be frustrating and difficult to deal with. If you're affected by the wind from a fireball, you will always get hit by the follow-up aerial attack. The aerial attack has a chance to not hit you whatsoever, rendering getting an excellent impossible. For this fight, you need to make sure you properly block or roll for each of his hits in danger mode. The attacks don't hit sometimes because of how small the map is, and if you're near the edge, Rathalos likes to attack something completely away from you. The Poison Claw attack is probably the most difficult move in the game to deal with because of how inconsistent it is. The timing and distance of Rathalos completely dictates how and when you need to roll this unblockable attack. And sometimes you're just going to get hit and it's very hard to avoid. Basically, the entire danger time segment is difficult, especially without a shield, and it's going to be your only way to get consistent damage and part breaks on a monster with 5 things to break off. This truly does feel like the end of level 4 because this fight does not mess around. I didn't even know you could get stunned in this game until I fought Rathalos. Since he's by far the most aerial monster we've hunted so far, he has a lot of moves he likes to do in the air. Sometimes he flies up and then does nothing before landing. Sometimes he flies and does a poison claw attack, or flies towards you. He can also fly at you without flying up into the air first. When he's airborne, he also likes to chuck a bunch of fireballs at you. Lastly, he has a quick retreating fireball attack. On the ground, he has a bite, tailspin, instant charge, and a grounded fireball attack. He is a very difficult monster to overcome and truly requires you to use everything you've learned so far to face him, along with adapting to the new mechanics that he brings to the table. The hunt can be frustrating and difficult at times, but there's no greater feeling than that quest clear screen when fighting this guy. And this is the end of level 4 of Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. Now 4 is just such a strange number to leave it at. If you were guessing there's another level, well, you would be correct. The final update for Dynamic Hunting introduced the last level. It's time for the hardest hunts in this game to enter the fray. Level 5 begins. The Monoblos, but much scarier. The dual horn Diablos. Diablos is fought in the desert, is weak to ice, and has less health than Rathalos at 6 health bars. Make no mistake though, this is a very tanky monster in both damage received and areas that bounce. It's highly recommended to bring an ice weapon to this fight to get that extra damage to take on a monster like this. Diablos also roars often, so roar cancel armor or well-timed shield blocks will help. You'd think they'd give us a sonic bomb for this fight, but that supply item does not exist in Dynamic Hunting, so instead we get flash bombs. So naturally, we want to use them right when Diablos comes out of the ground, and if timed correctly, we'll get the secret chance time. The key really is in the timing here. Basically, as soon as you dodge the red flash, you want to throw the flash bomb right before he appears for it to land correctly. Otherwise, you do stun him, but you won't get the chance time. The timing is really strict for this. The danger time is also a little tricky to dodge. Diablos roars and then follows up with a charge attack at you, then a quick horn launch into a double tail attack. Diablos' kit is similar to that of Monoblos. He has his roar and dig mentioned earlier, a horn launch attack, a bite attack, tail spin, tail double attack, and his charge. He can fake out the charge and follow it up with a horn launch. Diablos only has 3 breaks, a tail cut and 2 breaks on the horns. The horns, as you can imagine, are quite difficult to break if you bounce, so use Unbreakable or Chance Times to have an easier time breaking them. Diablos is a formidable foe, but can be a lot more manageable with the right setup, and rewards hunters that have learned the ins and outs of the previous Monoblos fight, since they can apply that knowledge to this hunt. And speaking of familiar hunts, our next hunt is the Azure Rathalos. Despite fighting the Rathalos 2 hunts ago, we're not done with this airborne freak. Azure Rathalos has 6 health bars and is weak only to Dragon. The strange thing about this hunt is that on paper it should be more difficult than the original Rathalos hunt. Enhanced moves, antidote instead of barrel bombs, longer danger time, but this to me felt like a much easier hunt. And a big part of that is the fact that we face him in the forest and hills. Having a larger area than the arena to deal with his flying shenanigans helps greatly and keeps the hunts more consistent. Another thing that really helps ease the burden of this hunt is that there is an actual secret chance time that works. After dodging his aerial dash attacks, if you counterattack, you will get a chance time opportunity. Azure Rathalos has essentially the same kit as Rathalos, save for a few moves that are upgraded. The danger time is the exact same as Rathalos, except he flies at you 1 extra time before using his poison claws. You just have to do what you did before to deal with it and get the chance time. Generally, if you fought and have a good understanding of the original Rathalos fight, not much has changed here. Even the part breaks are the same. Make sure you got some wind resistance or a shield, use the antidotes if you get poisoned, and pull off the chance times for a successful hunt. This is by far the most unique hunt in the entirety of Dynamic Hunting, and that is the mythical Kirin. We fight Kirin in the Snowy Mountains. Kirin is weak to no element, but only has 4 health bars. It's very unusual to be facing a monster with a much smaller health pool than its predecessors. Make no mistake though, this doesn't mean Kirin is easy to take down. Doing normal attacks on Kirin, even if they are knocked down in chance time, will do ridiculously small amounts of damage. I'm talking single digits, not to mention how incredibly bouncy this monster is. This hunt wants you to do 3 specific things to take down Kirin. Firstly, counterattacks are going to be crucial. They do a decent amount of damage and will stop Kirin in its tracks when timed correctly. Simply using horizontal and vertical slashes in general is your only real way of doing damage, but it won't do as much as counterattacks. Lastly, and this is a big one, is to use the 3 barrel bombs given as supply items. They do a significant amount of damage to Kirin, and without them, you'll be definitely in danger of timing out. Doing enough damage to Kirin is one thing to worry about, and another is how much of an ultimate test of your reflexes this hunt is. Kirin will barrage you with unblockable thunder, so it's crucial you understand how to deal with that. When Kirin summons a ring of lightning around them, you have to position yourself out of the way. You can roll through it, but you have to do a precise roll to the right to be successful. If you're far away from Kirin, they will try to snipe you with long-range thunder that pinpoints your location, so quickly run away from that. Sometimes Kirin will shoot lightning in a line in front of them, so be careful. Kirin also likes to hop around, do short hops, and dash at you, so you have to be quick with your reactions or you'll get hit. But nothing requires lightning-fast reflexes more than the danger time in this fight. Kieran will begin dashing at you, and you must roll away or block. Now here comes the tricky part. While Kieran dashes away from you, it will spawn lightning on either the left or right side of you, and it's completely random. You can tell where it's going to spawn by the red flash. If the red flash is on the right, you dodge to the left, and vice versa. Wait too long to roll and you'll get fried, so it's really a test of your reflexes. There is a way to actually roll in either direction and still roll correctly, and it's something I call the god timing. If you're rolling like a god, roll on the last possible frame to dodge the lightning, even if you roll directly into it. After Kieran charges at you and spawns lightning, Kieran will charge at you yet again and spawn lightning once more, as if it wasn't enough to dodge a move like that once. After the second lightning, Kieran will charge at you one last time, and this is where you'll have your opportunity to counterattack for a chance time. What can happen though, a lot more often than I'd like it to, is that Kieran runs too far past you to counterattack in time or in your range, so sometimes you gotta hope that you're positioned in a way that you'll land the counterattack. On the topic of it being a unique fight, Kieran doesn't have a secret chance time, and also has no part breaks. As long as you successfully hunt Kieran, you'll always get an S rank for parts, which is nice. This hunt puts your dynamic hunting abilities to the test. Kieran will not be taken down without a fight, and makes for one of the best hunts this game has to offer. But it doesn't end here. The 20th hunt is not only the final hunt of level 5, but also the final new monster to face in dynamic hunting. And this game knows how to end itself with a bang. The final hunt is against the Elder Dragon Lunastra. Not only that, we are treated to our final biome, the Tower. It's accompanied by the Tower fight theme. This hunt is a dramatic and climactic finish to dynamic hunting, with a handful of unique mechanics that we haven't seen implemented in the game until now. The Flame Aura makes a return with Lunastra. Basically, for the entirety of the fight until you break the head, your health will be whittled down by the Flame Aura. Blocking will do nothing to protect you, and yes, even if a single slither of health is melted off from the Flame Aura, it's impossible to achieve S rank in this hunt. So, how do you deal with it? Well, there's actually multiple ways. First of which is to have Lunastra poisoned. Using a poison weapon may seem like a good option here, but since the poison lasts for such a short amount of time, and the fact that it doesn't apply instantly means it's not going to be your go-to method. The 3 poison throwing knives that they supply you with, however, will work much better. The poison will apply instantly and will last a decent amount of time. You'll have to keep track of when the poison is about to dissipate, because the second it does, the Flame Aura is back and your health will be shredded. To break her head with only 3 poison knives without getting damaged by the Flame Aura requires a lot of luck and timing, but it is possible. But there's another method to deal with Lunastra's Flame Aura that I figured out way too late. Fire resistance. If you have an armor set equipped that has 20 fire resistance, you will not be harmed by the Flame Aura whatsoever. Seriously, it completely negates this mechanic of the fight, and you will never have to think of it ever again. Even with fire resistance, you still want to use those poison throwing knives for damage since Lunastra has 7 health bars, and you definitely still want to break that head. Once you break Lunastra's head, you'll be giving a one-time only chance time to take advantage of. It can't happen again since you can only break it once. Lunastra only has 3 part breaks: the head, the wings, and the tail. Another unique thing Lunastra does that no other monster in this game has done is whenever you are charging up your barrage attack, Lunastra will always jump away if she's able. No other monster has reacted to barrage attacks in that way, so I thought it was a very neat feature. Despite it being a big bad Elder Dragon, for once in this game, it's a monster that's not that bouncy. Aside from the wings, you'll have no trouble hitting Lunastra, which is really nice. Lunastra has an interesting roster of moves at her disposal. She can swipe at you. If you're behind her, she likes to hit you with a double tail slap. She's got the classic dragon charge, and a very long-range leap that sends herself flying. Lunastra retains her classic giant range flamethrower as well. If you block this, it can shred your health a little. And lastly, Lunastra has a close-range explosion. Dust flies in the sky before being ignited. If you roll with the right timing, you can avoid it, but it is much easier to simply have a blocking weapon and hold your ground. Danger time is surprisingly easy. Simply dodge the swipe, the leap, and double tail swipe and counterattack for an easy chance time. This fight is all about knowledge. If you know how to deal with the Flame Aura, this boils down to a pretty basic hunt. If you don't know how to deal with it, or can't deal with it in time, Lunastra can burn you into a pile of sad ashes. It's a very fun and interesting fight, and honestly, a perfect hunt to end the game with. This and the Kieran hunt feels like the pinnacle of dynamic hunting to me. It's crazy how exhilarating these hunts can be. Once you defeat Lunastra, you're met with a wonderful credit sequence listing the talented developers that created this game. Funnily enough, every single time you hunt Lunastra and win, it plays the credits. Thankfully, you can skip it though. I guess that's it, right? Surely there can't be more that this mobile app from 2013 offers. Well, if we wait until the end of the credits, we get a message. Congratulations! You've cleared level 5. Let's challenge Real Hunt. Wait, Real Hunt? What on earth is a Real Hunt? Real hunts, or also known as EX hunts, is where dynamic hunting enters a completely new level. For hunters that thought the base game was too easy, this is the game mode for you. In the quest select on the top right, you'll see a big EX button. Once you tap it, you'll be in the Real Hunt section. And instead of it saying level 1, level 2, it's EX1, EX2, etc. All 20 hunts are here, and they seem to already have a rank. In this mode, the ranks that you achieve don't change your rank in the base game. What does happen when you defeat a monster, though, is that a checkmark will appear next to the monster. You can also face these monsters in any order you wish. EX hunts completely change the way you play dynamic hunting by making the game more like traditional Monster Hunter. The monsters no longer have health bars. They are faster and stronger and have much more health. You also only have one cart, so if you cart once, it's game over. I think the most impactful change is that there are no more flashes when monsters are doing attacks. For me, I relied on those flashes for my timing for basically every move. I had no reason to believe that they would ever take them away, so I didn't think anything of it and relied on them way too much. Now that they are gone, I basically need to relearn every move and pay attention to their animations, much like in actual Monster Hunter. I really shot myself in the foot by relying on those flashes, but again, I had no idea that they were going to bring some real hunts into the fray. Isn't it crazy how much content they got in this game? So a new goal has been acquired. Who am I to say no to the challenge that dynamic hunting has put forth in front of me? One by one, I will hunt every EX hunt, all 20 of them. It's for the Flyann 2 YouTube channel. I gotta do it. We now thoroughly know everything there is about these monsters. They're just gonna be souped up now. The EX Kutku was a great introduction to what I could expect from the EX hunts. I did them all on stream as soon as I beat all of the original 5 levels of the game, so I had no time to prepare or lab out any of these hunts beforehand. I just tackled them head on. Once I got acquainted with the differences of EX mode, I took the Kutku down, and it was definitely a lot more difficult than its original iteration. I figured out you can still tell when this monster is at their last health bar because the music still changes, so we at least still have an audio cue. The timer is still 3 minutes, but they have way more health to deal with, so it makes it so 3 minutes seems a lot shorter now. After defeating EX Kutku, I acquired a big checkmark on its silhouette on the quest select screen, and now it's time to get a checkmark for every single monster. I took down the Congalala faster than expected. At this point, I switched to Gunlance, which kind of lets me explode through hunts. Once again, the score and ranks at the end of the hunt don't really matter in this. You can achieve S ranks in EX hunts, but nothing special happens from that. It's just something you can flex. Drops aren't any different in EX hunts either, so there's no real reason to farm these monsters aside from wanting more of a challenge and bragging rights. The Hermitor is when the timing aspect of dynamic hunting came into perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, I relied on those flashes to know when to roll out of the way when he comes out of the ground, so not having that made me have to really pay attention to the timing instead of the visual cues. Onto the Kezu now, and it's actually strange how much this feels like an actual Monster Hunter now. I really enjoyed the mechanics of the base game, but this really does take it to the next level. This was the hunt when I realized there was only one card. Kezu did one thunder attack and I was instantly dead. This game mode changed my entire perspective on the defensive aspect of this game when it comes to armor skills. Armor skills that allowed you to not get killed in one hit, or get up faster, or just negate damage in general in some way were now super useful. It's not about getting S ranks anymore and dishing out as much damage as possible. Surviving is something to seriously consider now that we're challenging EX hunts. It's crazy how much more depth this game mode adds to dynamic hunting. I definitely had trouble with Kezu, but after 5 attempts, I finally took him down and beat EX1. Now onto EX2. Remembering where to dodge for danger time definitely helps out a lot, is what I learned during the Bracerios EX hunt. Getting successful chance times were crucial for taking down this monster. The Blue Yan Kutku was similar enough to the original for it to not be too much of a problem for me. I'm starting to get the hang of this difficulty mode. Blanganga and Rathian got completely washed by me. The knowledge I've learned about chance times was my key to success. As long as I was dodging correctly, I didn't have to worry about carting and losing the hunt. EX3 is next. Yangaruga was pretty cut and dry, but things took a turn for the worse with Red Kezu. Something about Kezus in this game, man. There's just something about these electric freaks that just cook my ass. At this point, the attacks from these monsters do a lot of damage. A single electric shock could end the entire fight. This hunt was a wall for me. Having to relearn the timing for when to dodge, coupled with the fact that making any mistakes ended the hunt in an instant, was not a good combination. After many attempts, I had a climactic finish to a tense hunt, and the Red Kezu was taken down. EX hunts don't mess around, and my timing was put to the test once again with the EX Shogun Cianator. Even though they only give one shock trap, it helps a lot to dish out some easy damage on them. That being said, I was having a lot more trouble with this fight than I thought I would. Similar things I needed to overcome as the Red Kezu fight. Need to perfect my timing and not get hit. After more attempts than I'd like to admit, I was on to the final hunt of EX3, the Monoblows. This hunt was not easy, and there were moments I couldn't capitalize on damage opportunities because I didn't know where the monster's health bar would be at, so they would get knocked down when I wouldn't want them to, denying me barrage attacks and combos. This hunt took a lot of attempts, but it boiled down to timing my rolls correctly to get that chance time. It's so crucial in this game mode. You get a lot of extra damage and you don't have to deal with getting hit if they succumb to that juicy chance time. We're in EX4 now, and it starts off with my nemesis, the Pink Rathian. I was dreading this hunt. It was hard enough for me in normal mode before. In the first hunt, I was doing so well, hitting every chance time, blocking what I needed to block, and then I forgot that her bite move was unblockable since there was no red flash to let me know. A careless mistake. One bite and I was dead. The bite of 87. At this point, monsters do ridiculous damage, so I have to be extra careful. I felt like this monster was extra tanky too. She just soaked up so much damage before being taken down. Ultimately though, I was kind of happy with my performance against Pink Rathian. I feel like I used everything I learned so far to do much better than I did the first time I hunted her many moons ago. The Tigrex wasn't too difficult. It would have been nice to have more supply items, but I just had to avoid his charges and roars and counterattack like a madman. The Gravios is a hunt I was dreading. His moves are probably the most telegraphed out of any monster, but he had a crap ton of health in normal mode, so I knew I was in for a rough time in EX mode. What ensued was just a grueling non-stop battle, monster versus man going down to the wire. I took Gravios out with only 7 seconds left on the clock. An absolute titan of health here, but I was relieved to get that win. This next EX hunt is one of the most difficult hunts I've done in the game, and it's for a reason I'm not too happy about. The Rathalos. Every other monster in EX mode behaves essentially the same when it comes to their moves. For some reason, however, during the danger time with Rathalos, he just does not approach the hunter at all with his aerial dashes. I tested this fight again in normal mode just to see if I was going crazy, but no, for some reason in EX hunts, Rathalos only charges the hunter correctly during his first dash only like 10% of the time, so I would hardly ever get an excellent. This made getting chance times extremely difficult, especially considering he didn't have a secret chance time. It's a very frustrating fight trying to do enough damage without the use of the tools I needed. This is the only fight I'd say is broken in the entire game, so I'm not going to have it soil my entire experience. The hunt, however, was not pleasant. In fact, it was extremely difficult. It took me an hour of hunting him before I finally persevered, just from bashing my head at this fight long enough.
You know, I won that, but I don't feel like a winner. I really don't feel like a winner.
We're at the final EX level. EX5 begins with the Diablos. Diablos was a refreshing change of pace from the Rathalos, but had a move up his sleeve that is much more troublesome in EX hunts specifically. If you remember from when I was describing Diablos' moves before, he would charge at me and also have a move where he would fake the charge and then do a horn attack. This is a lot more difficult to spot without the yellow flashes happening. It truly does feel like an actual fake out that you have to quickly respond to, and honestly, it got my ass a couple times. The Diablos is a really tanky monster, and I only have one flash bomb for an easy chance time opportunity, so I knew this fight was going to be difficult and long, but at least there aren't any aspects of this fight that I would consider unfair. I was able to take down Diablos much faster than the Rathalos, but now I have to face his blue twin, EX Azure Rathalos. The good news here is that the air dashes are not broken for this fight. They're not different at all, which makes this fight, once again, much easier than the original Rathalos fight. In fact, I successfully hunted him in around 5 minutes, compared to the hour it took for his stupid, stinky brother. Well, the Rathalos saga is over now. We have something much scarier to be thinking about. The mythical Kirin returns. The Rathalos fight was difficult because it was broken. The Kirin fight was difficult because it was actually designed to be. This hunt is no joke. If you remember from earlier, Kieran's key mechanic is the danger time, where lightning spawns randomly either on the left or right side that was signified by a red flash that spawned on the respective sides. As you know, flashes no longer exist in EX hunts, making this hunt far more difficult. Kieran does not take much damage unless we're counterattacking and getting a chance time, and also loves triggering danger times. The issue here is not only being successful in the danger times to do some damage, but failing it and getting hit by lightning is an instant game over due to the sheer amount of damage. Some thunder resistance and upgrading my armor might give me more of a fighting chance, but I was too stubborn at this point to do that. I just wanted to master this fight, and that was something that was going to take me a long time. So how do you deal with the lightning during danger time without the flashes? Well, it takes longer to notice, but the lightning does spawn in the corresponding area of either left or right. It's just much harder to react to without the flashes. So I had two choices. Either learn to react instantly when I see where the lightning is, or master the god timing, where I can roll through regardless of where it spawns. After trying option 1 for a while, eventually I went with option 2. With enough practice, I was getting the timing down for the god roll. After dozens and dozens of attempts, I finally had a solid enough hunt, and I was victorious over the majestic asshead of a monster. It was an exhilarating hunt, and despite its difficulty and the amount of time I spent on it, I had fun. The final EX hunt begins, the Elder Dragon Lunastra. This hunt is 100 times more difficult if you didn't realize that wearing armor with 20 fire resistance would negate flame aura. One poison throwing knife is simply not enough to deal with Lunastra's gimmick. This is actually how I learned about the fire resistance, because I just couldn't believe that this hunt was supposed to be doable in any other way. So with fire armor equipped, I challenged Lunastra again. Fundamentally, this fight is very straightforward. The last hurdle we just have to get through is the large amount of HP EX Lunastra has. So by dodging everything I needed to dodge, breaking her head, getting chance times, and dishing out as much damage as I possibly could, I took down the EX hunt, the final one, and vanquished Lunastra. Honestly, the EX hunts were a lot of fun. They took the mechanics of dynamic hunting and pushed it to another level, and made it more like the typical Monster Hunter games we know and love from this era, but in a way that felt unique. The added challenge recontextualized a lot of the mechanics of this game, and it was really satisfying getting a checkmark for each monster I successfully defeated. Again, it's crazy how much content they put into this game that feels fun and refreshing. I couldn't believe the amount of hours I was sinking into dynamic hunting, not just for the video, but for the sake of simply playing it. After beating Lunastra, it played the credits once again, except this time, it showed me something new at the end. Congratulations! To be continued? With the silhouette of Rajang in the desert. What could this mean? This little secret will be delved into later. It's not quite time to talk about what lurks within dynamic hunting just yet. There is one last challenge I need to do before I can truly feel like I've done all the content Monster Hunter dynamic hunting offers. Something I alluded to earlier in this video, and I'm stupid enough to attempt. And that is S-ranking everything in normal hunts. This is something I wasn't sure when I got a hold of this copy I was going to do. Maybe I was going to leave it as stream content to complete over the course of weeks or months, but the more familiar I got with the game's mechanics and the more comfortable I ended up being in dynamic hunting, the prospect of being able to S-rank everything got more and more feasible. At a certain point, I made the decision. I want to S-rank every hunt, not only for the video, but for myself. Did I have what it takes? I felt like I wouldn't feel complete if I didn't. Getting a hold of a copy of a game like this and not playing it to its full potential just did not sit right with me. S-ranking every hunt is going to be one of the most difficult things I've attempted in my Monster Hunter career. To remind you guys, in order to S-rank a hunt, you need to hunt a monster under a certain amount of time while breaking every single part they have, making sure to do a sufficient amount of chance times, which can be heavily influenced by RNG, without getting hit once. This is a tall order just for a single hunt, but 20 hunts being S-ranked. Can it be done? Well, there's only one way to find out. It was time to grind. I was dedicating all my days non-stop on achieving this goal, and it once again began with the Yann Kutku. Fighting these monsters over and over again, and once more in EX hunts, have prepared me. I have the knowledge, but do I have the determination, and more importantly, the ability to react and execute? I didn't S-rank everything sequentially, since some hunts are harder than others, but let's go through them in order to avoid any confusion. That being said, my first S rank was actually against Yann Kutku. This is where I learned the basics of S ranking. I use a greatsword to get my 1 part break immediately. I have to resist the temptation to kill Kutku as fast as possible because I need to get S rank in mission bonus, which requires me to exercise some restraint as I wait for a danger time to farm some mission score. Danger times can be completely random, but thankfully in this attempt I didn't have to wait too long. 1 danger time is enough to get S rank in this specific hunt, but in certain hunts, I need at least 2 or even 3 if I don't land any other chance times, so keep that in mind. Pretty easy S rank overall, but it gets harder from here. For the Kongalala fight, I was going to take advantage of the secret chance time, counterattacking when his big old tummy is out to quickly get the part break I needed. Starting with the first claw break, then making my way towards the head, and finally the last claw break. Again, I stall at the end here to farm a danger time so I can get the mission bonus. Once I got it, it was GG. Up next is our favorite lovable crab. In this attempt, the Hermitor immediately does a danger time, which didn't happen in any previous attempt, so I got lucky. Not too much to say about this hunt, I dodged everything I needed to, and luckily got the final part break at the end before Daimyo died. For the Kezu, I definitely had to rely on timing the poison throwing knife to grant me some easy chance times. This was my best opportunity to get that pesky summit break since it was hard to reach otherwise. I waited for a danger time toward the end, and even though it isn't possible to properly do it, it still gives me a mission bonus to dodge some attacks here. 1 last chance time, and we get our S rank. Viserius was going to be a tricky hunt to S rank mainly because of the part breaks. I could have used a hammer to ignore the tail, but I opted to use the dual blades because the small range was perfect to actually cut it, and it's just a super satisfying weapon to use. I nailed the secret chance time in the beginning, timing my counterattack right when I needed it. I didn't have any roar cancel armor equipped, so I had to be extra careful. I get my tail cut, and 1 last chance time here gets me enough mission bonus for an S rank. With all the parts broken, I could finally unleash my full power on this moving rock. The Blue Yan Kutku was yet another excuse to go sicko mode with the dual blades. I got good RNG, so the beginning was just him standing around and doing nothing, which was a great opportunity to get both part breaks on his head. For this fight, if you remember, the strat is just to simply roll right for every single move. So not getting hit wasn't too much of an issue. Another easy and quick S rank for me. Knowing how to get the secret chance time is the key to success here for Blangonga. I can easily get the breaks I need while he's subdued. I made sure to get at least 1 danger time for the mission bonus, and this S rank was no problem. It took a long while before I got this S rank on Rathian. It may seem like I'm nailing all these S ranks first try, but behind these successful attempts are hundreds of resets and failed attempts that were almost good enough. I opted to use the hammer here so I didn't have to worry about the tail cut. For a monster like Rathian, you really have to be careful of not getting hit. All of her moves come out really quickly, and before you know it, a random tailspin clips you in the head and you have to reset. Again, behind a lot of these S rank attempts is constant restarting and failures, or an A rank for one criteria instead of an S that robs me of the entire attempt. This challenge can be psychological torture sometimes, but Mama Poogie didn't raise no quitter. With the hammer, I was able to break every part I needed and execute all the chance times necessary, ending with a climactic finish. The Yan Garuga was actually a very difficult S rank because of the amount of part breaks that I needed to land and how small their hitboxes were. I start off breaking the head and getting the chance time to go for the pesky tail. I was too close to the Garuga at first, so I had to readjust my positioning to get the tail cut. I get the second head break and make sure not to get hit. For the Garuga fight, I have 1 minute and 30 seconds before I lose the S rank on time. The wings are the hardest part to break here, so I have to be in a really specific position to get both. Once I got the breaks, I finish him off with an ult with about 15 seconds to spare. Getting an S rank for the Red Kezu fight is all about quick reaction times. I approached the breaks I needed the same way as the normal Kezu fight, and I made sure to dodge everything I needed to obtain that juicy chance time. I didn't want to use the poison throwing knives too early because I don't want Red Kezu to die before doing a sufficient amount of danger times for the mission bonus. I made sure not to allow him to get any electric shocky moves off for a safe and quick S rank. The Shogun has a lot of quick claw attacks, so reaction times need to be on point. Shock traps definitely help out here, along with danger time to get just enough opportunity to get breaks. For this hunt in particular, I got the last break I needed right at the end of the fight. If I didn't get that one in time, I would have just gotten an A rank. With the monoblows, I focused on getting that tail cut out of the way first. I mistimed the first barrel bomb for the chance time, but that was okay since I had a danger time to work with right after. Monoblows doesn't have that many part breaks to deal with, so after I got the horn, it was time to send this guy out of here. Pink Rathian, my nemesis. This hunt took many attempts to finally get the S rank. This hunt I'm showing in particular, everything went right, especially when it comes to the necessary part breaks. I actually wasn't doing well at the beginning. Yes, I was landing my chance times, but I just wasn't getting the breaks I wanted, and time was ticking. It all changed when I landed this beautiful barrage attack around the 2-minute mark. I got 3 consecutive breaks here. It felt incredible. But at this point, I knew I couldn't mess this run up. I had to make sure to not get hit a single time, make another chance time happen for the mission bonus, and end the fight in the next 30 seconds if I wanted that S rank. During the next chance time, I managed to get the tail, but I still didn't have all the part breaks. It all came down to the flash bomb barrage combo to get the S rank. This final barrage got me the final part breaks I needed just in time. There's such a huge anticipation on the screen here, waiting to see if everything hit an S. And it's both a sense of relief and a dopamine rush when you see it all become S's. I finally felt like I conquered this fight in every way that I could, and I've come a long way from that first fateful hunt with her. I opted not to use the shock traps for the Tigrex fight. It took too much time trying to wait for him to run into it for a chance time, so I just relied on spacing around him and reacting to the danger times correctly. Getting the brakes on his claw wings took a while, but once I had it done, it was time to seal the deal. The Gravios is yet another hunt that took many attempts to S rank. This one was especially frustrating just because of how long the hunt takes because of his mass amounts of HP, but after fighting him again and again, I figured out a pretty good strategy to lock in this S rank. I took advantage of the same pattern of behavior he would do when knocked down to get damage done on his pesky tail. Eventually, with a strong counter, I took it off. I hit a great barrage attack and started to use poison knives to whittle down his health. By being in the right position, I could properly get the stomach breaks I needed to without bouncing. The Shield of the Lance comes really in handy in this fight to block all of his close-range gases. Now that I had the breaks, it was a race against the clock to do as much damage as possible before the timer hits 1 minute. I was able to S-rank this fight with only 3 seconds to spare. Talk about cutting it close. I knew S-ranking Rathalos wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined to take him down with all of my culminated knowledge of the game. What resulted from that was an extremely clean S-rank. I barrel bomb him out of the air, use iframes for my barrage attacks. It was nice. It's easy to be hit by one of his hard-to-time poison claws and lose your entire fight. Thankfully, none of those shenanigans occurred in this one. After getting all my part breaks, I was able to close out the fight with one last barrage attack with about 3 seconds to spare once again. It's crazy how some of these attempts go down to the wire. Hey, I'll take a clutch win over a loss any day. The Diablos hunt boils down to timing that flash bomb. That chance time makes it a lot easier to get the tail cut I need along with the horn breaks. I space my barrage attacks perfectly so that the explosions hit the final horn. Gun Lance is so satisfying sometimes. Now, I just needed to get one more chance time and kill Diablos within the next minute without getting hit. My armor has roar cancel here, so I don't have to worry about getting stunned. The ending of this is a nail biter because I was 0.82 of a second away from losing my S rank. I swear these hunts are shaving years off my lifespan. We're in the final stretch for S ranks, and this isn't where things get easy, I'll tell you that much. Azure Rathalos is another fight that took many attempts. A lot of things have to go right. As long as I'm blocking, the chip damage won't affect S ranking the health section, so don't worry too much about the health here. I use the chance times as my main opportunity to try and get those pesky wing breaks. Azure Rathalos likes to fly around a lot and stall, and thankfully in this S rank attempt, he decided to behave. It may not seem like a difficult battle, but I worked hard to make it look easy, I'll tell you what. It may come as no surprise that the Kirin hunt may be the hardest fight to S-rank. I had to hope for good starting RNG so I could put down my barrel bombs and counterattack for big damage. I managed to land the first chance time perfectly, which was big. I had to make use of my barrage attack, and all hits landed, which chunked Kirin's health. Now it's time to put my reactions to the test here. Another danger time means I can't mess up. I have lost dozens, if not hundreds of runs to getting hit by lightning in this hunt, and during this attempt, my heart was beating so quickly, especially during this ending segment. If I didn't roll perfectly at the end there and get that final hit, this would be another addition to my sea of failures trying to S-rank the Kirin. The final battle. This was once again before I knew about the Flame Aura trick, so I got this S-rank in the hardest way possible. At least it makes for a good hunt to showcase. Without getting hit even once by the Flame Aura, it was very difficult getting a good enough opener to break his head in time. Lunastra loves jumping away and wasting my time in this fight, so with a mix of luck and skill, I got the perfect opener for the fight. After the head break, it was all a matter of breaking the wings, cutting the tail, and for the love of God, not getting hit by any random-ass move. My barrage attack came up, but I knew I couldn't use it because Lunastra would simply jump away. I threw my last poison knife because I needed to chunk down her health. I only had a minute left to kill her. I am so tense at this point of the hunt. I failed so many times before by small and simple mistakes, but I couldn't let it happen again, especially after such a good opener. 30 seconds left and I had to play perfectly. Lunastra graces me with one last danger time that I had to take advantage of. With 13 seconds left on the clock, I have finally bested every single monster. S rank has been achieved for every single hunt in dynamic hunting, and God does it look nice to see a sea of S's on the quest select screen and in my logs. This took so many hours of grinding, and there were hunts that just wore me down, but I kept going because eventually getting an S rank on a tough hunt felt incredible. Again, the amount of enjoyment and content you can squeeze out of this mobile game is insane. I keep mentioning it because I feel like they put too much sauce for a silly looking mobile game like this. It's just so fun to play. And even though it had its low points, I was very happy to have S ranked every monster. Even if, again, it wasn't for the video, I would have done it just for personal satisfaction. This game is addicting, and knowing the ins and outs of every monster is incredibly rewarding and fun. Unfortunately, I didn't get any acknowledgement from the game itself after getting all the S ranks. There's no specific award for it, nor did I get a new credit sequence. The glory is all within the wall of S's and nothing more. We're nearing the end of our time with dynamic hunting, but we're not quite done yet. In order to truly feel like I beat every aspect of the game, I wanted to get every single award and unlock every piece of armor and weapon the game had. That is my final goal in dynamic hunting. I wanted to see every little thing it had to offer me, and this was going to be a cakewalk after S-ranking the game. First, I started by getting every achievement. The problem with this is similar to how unlocking weapons and armor is. They don't tell you how to get the achievement until you've already acquired it. My thought process here was just play the game normally, try to do everything I can, and see if that makes me get any achievements. One of my favorites is acquiring the Hunter achievement. In order to obtain it, you need to play the game once. Quite a tough one. There's an achievement for simply hunting once with each weapon. There's one achievement for each level you complete. We've already beaten all that, so we got those already. There's one achievement for each monster. You simply have to hunt them each 10 times. I'd say some of the harder ones is to end 10 fights with a slash attack and 10 fights with a barrage attack, but honestly, if you just play the game normally, you'll probably get that achievement without even realizing it. Well, that's every single achievement out of the way. Now all we need to do is unlock every piece of armor and every weapon. This took a lot of time and grinding because if you guys remember, a lot of monsters have certain rewards that only drop when you get a certain rank, and even those aren't 100% guaranteed. Some weapons required me to get up to 12 of these rare drops, and I wouldn't even know it until I've unlocked them. So for a long period of time playing this game, I just didn't upgrade any of my gear or get new armor because I didn't want to deplete myself of those rare resources before I unlocked everything. I felt like a hoarder for a while. After dozens of hunts, eventually I had almost everything unlocked. There was an interesting variety of weapons, especially since there were weapons in the game from monsters that didn't exist in dynamic hunting. I wanted to quickly show you guys all the armor sets in this game since they look awesome. And now every weapon. You may be surprised by some of the ones they decided to put into this game. You've probably noticed by now that at this point, I have one last unlockable left. This last gun lance. Trying to figure out how to unlock this was quite frankly driving me insane. The last step, the final piece before I can confidently say I've achieved and done everything you can in this game. I could finally say I've completed Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. So what do we need in order to unlock this? Like every other weapon, it'll only be available to me once it's ready to be forged and have every material ready. The first thing I wanted to narrow down was what the gun lance could possibly be. What monster could it be from? At first I thought it was going to be a Kieran gun lance since there was a Lunastra lance and a Lunastra gun lance. Surely there'd be a Kieran lance and a Kieran gun lance. After farming many Kirin Thundertails, it still didn't show up. I basically farmed every monster over and over until I had about 10, maybe 15 of all their materials, including the rare ones, and this took days. After all that, there was still nothing showing up. Maybe it was ore or bugs I was missing, so I farmed those as well. Still nothing. I was going crazy trying to figure out what the last material I needed was. Surely there was some item I didn't have enough of to trigger the unlock. Days go by of farming anything imaginable that could possibly unlock this gun lance, and I was still left with those damn 3 question marks. At this point, I was at my wit's end, so I decided to check some Japanese websites that could tell me what the gun lance was and what it needed to be unlocked. Lo and behold, they didn't even know, and it's widely regarded as a glitch, so it shouldn't be in the game in the first place. It is impossible to unlock this gun lance. It was most likely supposed to be unlockable through a future update. A shame. Well, at least I had a crap ton of materials now. Aside from the gun lance, I had unlocked every single weapon and armor set the game had to offer, and I felt pretty complete. I didn't get any achievement or anything for accomplishing this, but it's cool to know almost everything the game offered. So is it over? Is that the end of the game? Have we exhausted everything inside this mobile smartphone application? Not entirely. Remember the to be continued from earlier with the silhouette of Rajang? Deep within the code of dynamic hunting is the hidden 6th level. Yeah, 5 levels was not enough. Data mined from the game, they would have added Black Gravios, Rajang, a Cantor, Silver Rathalos, and Gold Rathian. And not only that, they were going to add another weapon to the game. The very first gunner weapon, the bow. There's actual footage of some of these monsters. Someone from way back in the day made it so they were able to bring them out of the code and fight them and filmed it. This video was circulated around GameFAQs, but unfortunately the video is now lost to time. It's been privated for years now, so we won't be able to see exactly how it looked like. The developers for this game put in a lot of work for this content, and it's a shame it never officially came out, but all is not lost. There's technically a Japanese-only sequel to Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. It's called Monster Hunter Massive Hunting. No, I'm not making this up. This game took everything from Dynamic Hunting and expanded upon it in incredible ways. I'm talking about different areas, new mechanics, new weapons, and even the monsters that were supposed to be in the 6th level of Dynamic Hunting made their way into this game. I'm trying my best to get my hands on it to show it off to you guys in the future. There are a lot of hidden gems out there when it comes to Monster Hunter that deserve to be shown to the world, and it makes me happy to play and document them for these videos. If you guys also enjoyed the live experience, I stream a lot of these cool old Monster Hunter games along with challenges here on YouTube and on my Twitch. We're currently doing Prowler-only challenge runs, aiming to beat Fatalis in Monster Hunter 1, revisiting 3 Ultimate before the servers shut down, and much more with our lovable Poogie Tuber. It's not something you want to miss, so come on down to twitch.tv/flyann or click the link in the description if you want to be part of the live experience.
What? What the hell?
I've spent many months playing and documenting Monster Hunter Dynamic Hunting. If I were to summarize my experience, I was simply in awe at the amount of content, depth, and fun that could be had by a mobile game they made more than 10 years ago. It is insane that this was their first attempt at a smartphone mobile game. On the surface, this game looks like a write-off. Something they got a couple devs to quickly work on as a cash grab, banking on the Monster Hunter IP to get some suckers to fork over some cash to play for a couple of hours at most. In reality, it's a game that a talented team poured a lot of time and effort into creating a unique mobile experience that still held the core essence of Monster Hunter. This is genuinely a game you could spend as much time with as a real portable Monster Hunter game. For the price point of $4.99, this game was a steal. It's a shame that this game isn't super accessible to everyone and that you have to jump through so many hoops just to play it. Hopefully there can come a day where we can all play these games in an easier way, but for now, I'm very grateful I got to show you guys everything this game had to offer, and I really wanted to show you every last thing. This game set the precedent for what Monster Hunter mobile games should be more than 10 years ago, and I hope mobile Monster Hunter games in the future take notes on all of its satisfying unlockables, addicting gameplay, and intricate mechanics. This game just feels so good to play, and it was a pleasure to document it in its entirety. At the end of the day, they named this game in the most accurate way possible. It's not simple, it's not boring, and dare I say, it's nowhere near being static. It is dynamic. This is dynamic hunting, and that is what it will be forever remembered as.